my colleagues, Nuri Martinez, Jose Huizar, David Rue, Corinne Price. Ellos que necesitan ayuda en español, nosotros tenemos allí con estos jóvenes las máquinas por eso. ¿Suficiente? ¿Sí? ¿Sirve? ¿Entiende todos? ¿Sí? Todos que necesitan ayuda atrás, aquí está con este joven máquinas por eso. ¿No? Sí, here she comes.
Muy buenas noches, damas y caballeros. Si fueran tan amables, las personas que necesitan equipo de interpretación se pueden acercar a hacer una línea, una fila ahí y se les va a proveer esto. Muchísimas gracias. Muy buenas noches.
Today is a historic and significant day. I would like to use the time in the most productive manner. We have invited key leaders in our communities, and we value each and every one of you. We're asking you to show how your organizations are providing resources, addressing questions of fear, finding solutions to many of the unanticipated concerns that are arising by the minute, it appears. This committee today will use its time for active listening and sharing. Every item on today's agenda touches a very important policy matter, and each matter deserves serious and in-depth discussion. However, to respect your time in order for us to have the appropriate discussion, we will ask our departments to expeditiously prepare reports and come back to this committee with details, data, information that will be of most value to all of us. We understand that it is imperative that we get the ball rolling and that we move, and that now is the time to move. As members of the Los Angeles City Council, we truly believe that it is our responsibility to protect and enhance the quality of life for all residents of the city of Los Angeles, regardless of your national origin, your religion, your ethnic group, your language, your sexual orientation, your gender, your marital status, or your immigration status. Let me say to you, from my own perspective, shortly after the election, I encountered one of the prominent business leaders of Los Angeles just a few days after the election. And he approached me. He was very excited. We were up the street at one of our great restaurants in the 14th District. And he approached me and said, I've been looking to see you since the election, and I'm happy you're here. And I said, great, I'm happy to be here and to see you. And he said, look, council member, we are either resistors or collaborators. He said, we are either resistors or collaborators. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, I want to say this to you because my grandparents told us that when our family was in Nazi Germany, there were those who believed that they could work with the Nazis. And that didn't work out for us. And so we have a decision and a choice to make, to resist or to collaborate. I am proud to be a Los Angeles City Council member. I am proud to be an Angelino and a Californian. Our leadership yesterday spoke clearly in saying that California is not turning back, not now, not ever. Those words came from the governor of the great state of California. The legislature as well has spoken clearly in stating that they want to have their own counsel and have hired no less than Eric Holder, former Attorney General, to represent the policies of the legislature as we move forward in this area. The City of Los Angeles, working with the county and nonprofit groups, have set aside $10 million for us to make sure that each and every immigrant has access to a lawyer to represent their interests with respect to their immigration status. This is what I would call institutional resistance. The school board, the leadership of Steve Zimmer, have taken extraordinary steps to bring calmness to the parents and to make sure that students feel safe and secure as they go to and from school each and every single day. This is an extraordinary moment in the history of this city and the history of this nation, and I'm very proud to be a member of the City Council today. Let me suggest to you what we should hear from Washington. We should hear that immigration policy should be generous, it should be fair, it should be flexible. With such a policy, we can turn to the world and to our own past with clean hands and a clean conscience. Those are the words of President John F. Kennedy when he spoke about a nation of immigrants. I'm honored to be here tonight with my colleagues. I want to give them an opportunity to make their comments public. We will then move forward with the agenda items, and then we will hear from panelists that we have asked to come and address us. All of us have a stake in ensuring that every member of our community, regardless of their immigration status, is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And it's my prayer that we move from this meeting forward to ensure that that is the case. Mr. Price, you have been a champion for immigrants in the 9th District, in the city. We collaborated in Sacramento. You were always there at my side as we fought for a driver's license and the DREAM Act. I cede you the floor.
Appreciate your leadership here and in Sacramento, always standing for the rights of our citizens. Members, we're standing at the precipice, the edge of the precipice, and it is a long way down. We have a president who, if he lives up to his campaign promises, will erode the foundation of our nation. Since taking office, he has done nothing but prove that he is the wrong man to lead our country. Already, he signed draconian executive orders that threaten to destabilize the insurance market, populate the environment, endanger women, and place a gag order on federal agencies and stifling trade. The idea of deporting millions of people who are vital to our economy is unconscionable. It's irrational. Quite frankly, it's sickening. We must do everything in our power to protect our immigrant community. This includes hundreds of thousands of undocumented individuals brought to the U.S. as children that are beneficiaries of DACA. I can't and will not in good conscience sit back and watch this president continue to take inflammable and dangerous actions that will cause irreparable damage to our nation, our city, and the 9th District. With this inaugural meeting, Mr. Chairman, we hope to send a clear message to President Trump and others who agree with his ideologies. The City of Los Angeles stands ready to fight for injustices targeting our immigrant communities. Members, today I'm proud to stand with you to let the President know that we will not be bullied. We will not let you tear our communities apart. We will not let your divisiveness rule our decision-making. To quote Thomas Jefferson, we in America do not have a government by the majority. We have a government by the majority who participate. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. Well, Mr. President, we, the people of Los Angeles, will not remain silent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. One of two immigrants on our city council, giving us a perspective from a different shore, Councilmember David Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your decades of leadership on this issue. And good evening to all. Thank you all for being here tonight. You know, I am quite frankly stunned and overwhelmed with emotion. My heart especially breaks for the millions of people, especially the children, who are going to go to bed afraid tonight because they feel uncertain about their futures. They're scared that they might be torn apart from their families and forced out of the only place that they know as home. I'm also angry because we have a president who believes in alternative facts. In my family, we call those lies. And sadly, this is the man that believes millions of undocumented people voted illegally. You know, he even went so far to call for an investigation of the election while both Republicans and Democrats have repudiated those falsehoods. You know, we're living in uncharted territory. This president of the free world seeks to pit group against group and use his unprecedented executive powers to fulfill his harmful and hurtful and maybe unlawful campaign promises. But there's good news. Los Angeles is and will continue to be a place of refuge for people from all walks of life, regardless of one's background, income, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, or immigration status. I immigrated from South Korea when I was 6 years old. I am both the product and beneficiary of the diversity that we celebrate here in Los Angeles. Over 3 million immigrants live, work, and contribute to this region. Like my parents, these hardworking people who came to our shores to give their children a much brighter future. We are not, as the president claims, murderers, rapists, or terrorists, but rather we are teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers, lawyers, labor leaders, and some of us, council members. We come from loving families, seeking to share in the American dream, but we are also obligated to hold open the doors of opportunities for others, ushering in a new generation of citizens that are committed to a prosperous America. Los Angeles will not sit idly by as the current administration attacks our immigrant communities. We will speak up against hate. We will resist unlawful acts, and we will protect the most vulnerable among us. We have already started and will continue to remain vigilant. This committee has the vital role of playing in the next 4 years, and unfortunately, we have only seen the beginnings. But we will resist, and we will fight to ensure that the millions of immigrants who helped build this city feel safe in their homes, feel confident in our streets, and loved in our communities. So thank you very much.
We're very fortunate to have an incredible voice for women in our society. Her power and her strength is that she is equal to 14 other of her colleagues. I'm proud to introduce my colleague, Nuri Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, I should say. I think it's already dark outside. There's no question that I am not, this is not the outcome that I would have liked for the presidential election. And I don't want to continue to talk about this president and award him any more of my time because we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We have to get busy. And I want to continue with our meeting, but I want to say this. As a mother, I want to focus on the children and making sure that we are not tearing families apart in this city. As a mother, I want to ensure that our kids and the services that the city of Los Angeles provides to these children are protected. So I want to get to the work of this committee, Mr. Chair. I want to hear from the audience. That's why we are here. We have no more time to waste on a man that has clearly shown to us and demonstrated to us what he is capable of doing and continue to do. We need to get to work. We need to prepare our families, prepare for the worst, because he's already made a huge signal tonight of what he's intending to do to our families, to our communities in this country. We need to ensure that we protect them, and that's what we're here to do. I'm very honored to sit on this committee, sir, and let's get to work.
Thank you. Perhaps the city's most well-known immigrant from Zacatecas, proudly and a great example of what immigrants bring to our city and our state and our region, the Honorable Jose Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming out tonight to what is a historic moment, not only for the city of Los Angeles, but certainly the nation. I want to give a huge thank you to our chair, Cedillo, as well as our council president, Wesson, who's had the foresight that soon after this president was elected to set up this ad hoc committee on immigrant affairs, knowing full well that the city of Los Angeles had to prepare itself with any potential policies that this president would put forth. And here we are, the day that this meeting was scheduled for a few weeks back. We get the first executive orders that are draconian, paranoid, misguided directions for this country that will not only affect immigrants, but will affect all of us. Here in the city of Los Angeles, we understand and know full well that if we treat everyone the same and equally, no matter whether they have documents or not, we are going to have a more peaceful, united, productive, progressive city as we move forward. That's why Special Order 40 has worked for us, because we do not ask anyone whether they are a witness or they are a victim of a crime. Our officers do not ask anyone whether they are documented or not, because we know full well that has helped us keep our crime levels low, because any individual coming in contact with our police officers are not afraid of whether that officer will ask them if they have their papers or not. But what I'm grateful tonight is that in these last couple of weeks, we've seen city leadership stand up and say we're going to go beyond what we've done with Special Order 40, and we know that's worked. We're going to provide funding for those individuals that need legal representation. We're not only going to set up this committee, but we're going to do more to see what else we can do to ensure that the city of Los Angeles continues to move forward. My message as we open up today, Mr. Chair, is that let's not just continue to say that this will help immigrants, that this will help continue the city of Los Angeles as a city that has over 45% of its population that is foreign-born moved together. It affects everyone. It affects citizen, non-citizen, a person who has their documents or not. What we have done as a city to show that we're working together is working. Let's stay on that path. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, I believe strongly that we are on the right side morally, economically, socially. But not only that, for me personally, as someone who came to this country at a young age, who my parents brought me, and I did not have my documents at that time. The federal government at that time had a policy to unify families. When my siblings were born here, that allowed me to get my documentation, my residency, eventually my U.S. citizenship. The comprehensive immigration reform packages that we have been fighting for was hoping to change that law so that we have the same type of laws that we had at that time, because that's not the case now. And now with this presidency, it seems like we are taking bounds and leaps backwards as opposed to moving forward for the simple things we were asking for in the immigration reform packages of the last couple of years. We are in some dark times when it comes to these types of issues, Chair, but I believe strongly that in the city of Los Angeles, we have always been a beacon of light, and we will continue to do so, because after all, it affects all of us, whether we are here documented or not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I was remiss in failing to mention that this committee is a product of the leadership of Council Member and Council President Herb Wesson, and for that, all of us should express our appreciation for his leadership. It was he who ensured and insisted that we form this committee, that it's focused on immigration and civil rights, that we use all our resources, and we are here in the evening utilizing appropriately the resources of the city. I want to thank the LAPD for those who are working overtime this evening, for providing security. I want to thank the city family, from those who are assisting with parking to those who are here giving us policy direction. With all that said, I want to move that we adopt items 1 through 4 on the agenda, and that items 5 and 6, that we request the CLA to prepare appropriate report backs to this committee within 2 weeks. I move those items 1 through 4 on consent.
So moved.
Is it up? Okay. The item may be moved on consent. For the record, the votes will be taken after public comment.
That's correct. Okay, colleagues, we can then move to item 7. This was. We're going to bring item 7 up. Item 7 is I'd like to bring to the table those institutional leaders who have specific interest and responsibility in this subject matter. Let me first ask that Rusty Hicks from the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor please join us up here. Also representing Chief Charlie Beck, Chief Arcos, LAPD, please join us up. Danas Goshan, Board of Education, Los Angeles Unified School District, please join us. And can we also be joined, Scott Svanken? I didn't see Scott. Scott Svanken from the Los Angeles Community College District Board of Trustees. Please join us. And we have a representative from the mayor's office. Please join us. Yeah. So, Mr. Hicks, we thank you for your presence. We are pleased to see you here tonight, and we're very honored and flattered by you being here on behalf of the tens of thousands of working men and women who work in this city that you represent.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, it is an honor and privilege to be here on what I believe is probably one of the most important topics in this city today. I first wanted to say thank you to the council president and members of the committee for bringing all of us together to talk about this important topic and find a way to pull through in this important moment. You know, I was here this morning as you took a vote to bring the Olympics to Los Angeles in 2024, and we talked about the importance of looking west for inspiration, for hope. And really to showcase the best that this country has to offer. And I think in this particular moment, what Los Angeles is showcasing is the best that this country has to offer. And in this particular moment, we have the opportunity to showcase that not only to the rest of the country, but also to the rest of the world. Angelino's coming from 140 countries and speaking 224 languages. Our strength truly resides in our diversity. Obviously, some have taken a campaign tactic and turned it into an un-American reality. But certainly on behalf of the LA County Federation of Labor and its 800,000 hardworking women and men all across the county of Los Angeles, we stand in strong solidarity with our sisters and brothers, regardless of their legal status or who they choose to love or what religion they choose to practice. We have already strengthened the protection for immigrant workers through collective bargaining agreements, that opportunity to sit across from their employer and to negotiate wages, hours, and working conditions to improve their lives and that of their families. But we look forward to working with all of you to do a lot more. Certainly whether it's ensuring that every worker and immigrant has the access to legal counsel to defend their rights in a fair process, or whether it's frankly all of us in here at this table and in the audience standing with the city when in fact federal funds are threatened. I think in that particular moment, it's critical that we stand up and support decision makers and city leaders who make the decision to protect all residents, regardless of their status. You know, for decades, I think Los Angeles and California have been stronger, more progressive, more prosperous than the rest of the nation. And unfortunately, some have taken a different path, and a wise president would follow our lead. Instead, that he's decided to take our nation down a bit of a dark path of division and exclusion. So we're looking to all of you. We're looking to our own power, our own strength to stand up for all residents in our city, because the threats that we face, I think we recognize that they are real. But I think we also have to understand that our resolve is firm and steadfast. And so I want to thank you for bringing all of us together, and look forward to working with you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And your leadership is really appreciated, not just day in and day out in the collaboration between the city and the County Federation of Labor, but particularly today on behalf of the working men and women of the city. It's great for us to know that your powerful organization has our back. And so I thank you for your presence. Speaking of Deputy Chief Arcos, I saw the chief earlier today. I heard him. He was as eloquent and straightforward as he usually is. It's unfortunate he can't be with us, but we're very happy to have you here and hear from you on behalf of the chief.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you all, council members, for your leadership in convening this ad hoc committee. And thank you for your opening remarks, and especially to Councilmember Huizar for referencing the importance and the strict adherence to Special Order 40 within the Los Angeles Police Department. I'd like to read just a very brief statement to the board, please. The LAPD is a municipal police agency that is responsible for the enforcement of state and local criminal laws within the jurisdiction of the City of Los Angeles, as defined by the city charter and California law. The department's nearly 10,000 officers and 3,000 civilian employees are dedicated to protecting LA's 4 million residents and millions more who visit, work, and travel through this dynamic, vibrant, and diverse city every day. We do this through a robust community policing strategy that focuses on preventing crime through community partnerships, collaborative problem solving, and building public trust, essential components to reducing crime and protecting the public from harm. The LAPD is obligated to use its limited city government resources to enforce local and state criminal laws to protect the lives and property of millions of people in Los Angeles. We do so by investigating violent crime and property offenses, making arrests for misdemeanor and felony crimes, enforcing traffic laws, and providing short-term jail facilities for arrestees pending their transfer to the custody of the criminal courts. The LAPD is not responsible for the enforcement of federal immigration laws that use administrative and civil remedies to detain and remove undocumented immigrants from the United States. In 1979, the LAPD issued a formal policy prohibiting officers from initiating contact with a person based solely on the person's suspected immigration status. This policy has been a critical part of the department's community-based policing strategy over the past 40 years, because as a primary police agency responsible for preventing and reducing crime in Los Angeles, we must rely on the cooperation and partnership of all the diverse communities in Los Angeles. If we hope to save our neighborhoods, victims of crime, especially those who can be exploited because of their status and are vulnerable to harm, must not fear calling the police for help. Witnesses to crime, similarly, must not fear calling the police or testifying against an accused in criminal courts if we are to keep our communities safe. The LAPD remains committed to its proven strategy of reducing violent crime and property offenses through community partnerships and relationship-based policing efforts. By promoting fair and impartial policing based on constitutional policing principles, the LAPD has not only earned the public's trust, but has built positive relationships that enable the most vulnerable in our communities to seek help when they are victimized by criminals. The LAPD will continue this approach to fulfill our obligation to protect Los Angeles, just as the federal government and its agencies will determine their own enforcement strategies to enforce compliance with federal laws and regulations within its jurisdiction. Council members, I took the time to read this statement because very shortly after the election, the chief of police was very quick to come out and restate his commitment to all of our communities and our priority to keep the city of Los Angeles safe and protected. This has been the messaging we've been using since the election in over 70-plus meetings across the city to all of our diverse communities. In fact, one is going on right now in Chinatown, in our Asian American communities, and we continue to reinforce this messaging to instill the trust in their police department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anas.
Good evening, council members. First and foremost, thank you for all that you do. I'm here on behalf of School Board President Steve Zimmer, and he's very sorry that he cannot be here, unfortunately, but he, of course, says thank you as well for the dedication you put into all that you do, the time and the effort. So, as you guys know, in the past year, many of you know, the LAUSD board has passed many resolutions to protect the students of LAUSD, their families, and the community members. Those resolutions are still very much intact, and I'm here, again, on behalf of Board President Zimmer, LAUSD, Board District 4, to ensure that those resolutions are still intact, to ensure that we are doing whatever we can to protect not only our students, but their families, the staff, our employees, and all of the community members. LAUSD, we want you to know, is not cooperating and will not cooperate with immigration services who might want to interview or work with students who are at a school site. In February 2016, a resolution was passed, and school board declared that all LAUSD schools, which are more than 1,200, are safe zones. Law enforcement agents looking to depart any students are not allowed into any of its schools without a review process. Furthermore, the resolution also provides outlets of expression for students on every campus. There's a webpage and, importantly, a hotline for all and every student, his or her family, members of the community, or anyone involved to call if there's any questions at all, any concerns. They can call this hotline and all questions can be answered. The board will also protect the identity of any student, family member, or employee who may be affected. We're going to continue to provide the services to all students and families in the community. As I mentioned, we're very, very much here to support our students. Each student, all students, no matter where they come from, no matter who they are. We want to protect our students. That's extremely crucial to us. It's our number one priority. And as as things develop, we're here to provide additional support, however that may be. And we're very much looking to work with the city, the community, to come up with collaborative efforts to do whatever we can to protect our community, especially our students, who we know are very vulnerable right now, very scared. And for us, that is just extremely unacceptable. We want to do whatever we can to make sure our students feel safe, secure, are able to go to school and feel good about going to school, and not live in fear. One more thing I just wanted to address, due to today's executive order by the Trump administration, Board President Steve Zimmer did release a statement that I want to quickly read. President Trump's executive order on immigration is the single most significant act of mean-spiritedness by a president in my lifetime. Beyond the hostile aggression against families and communities, this executive action counters the core values of our nation and the vision of our founders. This is also an action that could be aimed directly at our school district. We understand that significant federal dollars could be at risk because of our support for every student and every family, and our policies to not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement actions. The mission of LA Unified is to serve every child that comes to our schoolhouse door. Our job is to provide to all children and families a high-quality public education and all the necessary services needed to support student learning. Our goal remains that 100% of district high school students will graduate and be career ready. Today, we are more committed to that goal and our mission than ever before. So, I pledge to families today that we have pledged every day since the election. Our schools are safe zones for every child and every family member. Our board actions to codify this are aligned with the U.S. Constitution and confirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court. in the Plyer v. Doe ruling in 1982. LA Unified does not intend to cooperate with any effort to enforce today's executive action or with any other immigration enforcement activity based on the February 2016 board action. Our schools are safe today, they will be safe tomorrow and into the future. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Colleagues, comments and questions? Mr. Price? Mr. Rue? Ms. Martinez? Yeah, but you can.
It's regarding one of the items on Special Order 4. Is it okay to ask a question, or am I diving too much into that specific item? My question was regarding, I don't know if the police officers know this or not, but has the commission begun discussions on reviewing Special Order 40?
Councilmember Martinez, no, we have not. We met 3 weeks ago with in excess of 12 immigration advocates, and they presented some recommended language and revisions to Special Order 40. Chief Moore and myself have forwarded all that recommended language to the Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy with Mr. Alakan for them to review. I think you all know Chief Beck is very open to working and engaging with the community and stakeholders on any suggestions that they may have on anything that will make us a stronger and a better police department.
Well, the reason I ask about this is because I think it's in need of reviewing and updating. But the reason I ask is I've participated in task force that involve the federal government as it pertains to human trafficking.
Yes,
and I'm doing a lot of work in the Valley regarding that. And so when we're reviewing Special Order 40, I want to figure out how we're going to continue that collaboration with the federal government when it comes to those task force that help us arrest pimps that are trafficking young minors in our city. These people need to get put away. So I want to figure out what our role is going to be. As if we decide to update Special Order 40, I want that to be one of the questions that gets addressed.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure that we have that in there.
Councilmember Huizar.
Thank you. And since we're on the issue of Special Order 40, we as a police agency in the officers' duties, once an individual is arrested, they're turned over to the county jail, correct? Or we did for some time.
Yes.
And so the sheriff's department, we're not sure what position they will take now, or the county will take at this time. But one of the things that the president proposed in his executive order today is that we will not only deport individuals who are convicted, but even charged. I think there's an issue there with the due process of law, whether you're documented or not. But aside from that, at what point does the LAPD is involved with an individual who was charged? Because under our Safer Communities, the Safer Communities federal initiative, a number of individuals who were citizens, who were residents, were wrongly deported through that program, and it seems like the president wants to bring that program back. And I'm just wondering at what point, or what role will LAPD play should the executive order, if they want to enforce it, which is when an individual is charged and not necessarily convicted after they've had their due process of law.
Councilmember, on that issue there, LAPD, we're a short-term jail facility, so there's about a 48-hour window before they're transported to the custody of the Sheriff's Department for their sentencing or to finish their completion of their sentence. So I'm not sure how it's going to relate to us within that short term. I do know, though, that just very quickly in the executive order that was passed out today by the president, the U.S. Mayor's Conference and the major city chiefs have posted a statement in regards to that. In the language, they have strong reservations with the provision in the executive order, and that there's not clear definition in many parts of it, that they're going to requiring the Secretary of Homeland Security and the U.S. Attorney Generals to come out and give them a clear definition in the language from that. So I'm hoping that works its way out and gives us some guidance in things that may affect our procedural processes here with LAPD.
Great. Thank you. And I think overall, not only with respect to this, as you pointed out, but a lot of issues within the executive orders issued today by the president are vague and require a lot of definitions and guidelines, but at the same time, the danger in being so vague is that they could be widely applied, and that's the other danger that we see with the executive orders today. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it might be a good opportunity for me again just to speak to LAPD's commitment on that. Is that in 2015 we had 504 detainer requests from ICE. Of those 504, 0 were honored in 2015 by the LAPD. In 2016, up to the month of October, we've had 264 detainer requests, and 0 have been honored as well. So. Go ahead.
If I can ask a question of Mr. Zimmer's representative, do you know of any, I've been on the school board before, but can you think of any resources that we can leverage between LAUSD? I know that Mr. Svanken was called out. I was hoping somebody here from the community colleges was here. Can you think of any type of resources we can leverage to perhaps do outreach efforts citywide to inform our community of what's happening, their rights, and how to get information, correct information, and how to get help?
Well, I know there was a statement put out by Mr. Zimmer, the superintendent, Ms. King, that informed the city and the community of what they can do to get questions answered, to get help, where to go if they need support. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, I'm just thinking more of efforts that we can collaborate together.
Yeah, I know that Mr. Zimmer. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I know that Mr. Zimmer and then the entire board is very much looking forward to working collaboratively with the city, with the community, with city colleges, and with the community members to definitely do whatever we can to support the community and to ensure the safety of everyone in the community and resist the administration. But as of right now, specifically, not sure what we can leverage, and that's something that I'll definitely continue to speak to Mr. Zimmer about. But I do know that we very much, we call to action everyone in the community, the city council, to come up with efforts.
Yeah, maybe when our community advocates come to the table, we can talk about some citywide community engagement efforts that we can all be working on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, Mr. Ru.
Mr. Chair, actually that was in that same line of questioning, Councilman Martinez. I first want to thank Board President Steve Zimmer and LACC President Scott Svanken, and I joined him for a press conference earlier this morning.
Yes.
And I did talk to President Zimmer, and he was talking about various resources that LAUSD and LACCD wanted to provide for undocumented students. So I know we talked about DACA workshops or immigrant rights training or hotline numbers. Has that come to fruition yet at LAUSD?
Yes, it's something that's definitely we're working on, but specifically the hotline has been in place for months now.
Okay.
The hotline has been available. We also have different members of the community at our family resource centers throughout Los Angeles.
Can you elaborate on the hotline as well as some of the current existing resources you have available at LAUSD for the public?
Sure, absolutely. So I did address a couple of them. Specifically, I would say the hotline is the best place to go for the community, for students, for family, community members, anyone who has any questions whatsoever, has any fear and needs to be calmed down a bit and feel safe. The hotline is the best place to go. So I can get the number. I don't have it right off the top of my head. I can definitely get that right now, but. So we do have people in place at our family resource centers for Steve Zimmer specifically in East Hollywood, and at the family resource centers we have people in place answering phone calls pretty much all the time. So if any member of the community again has any sort of question, just wants to speak to someone, wants to get more information, whatever it may be, the hotline has been in place and is active now for several months. So any community member. And anyone really who just has a question about it or just needs to be assured that everything will be okay and that we're doing whatever we can, they can call that hotline.
I got the hotline number.
Yes.
Thanks to Google.
Thank you.
866-742-2222. That's 866-742-2273, and it's open on weekdays.
Thank you very much. Also, just to note and just to add that if, as always, the board district's phone phone number is available. President Zimmer's phone, all the other board members' phone numbers are available. So anyone can also always call our board offices if there's anything going on, if they have a specific question, if they need some support, some guidance. They can always call the office, and there'll always be someone answering the phone if it's between work hours.
¿Algo más? Good. Thank all of you for being here. We know your time is valuable and precious, and we appreciate you joining us this evening for this very, very important night. Thank you guys, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Let me call up Mike Hernandez, former Los Angeles City Council member of the 1st District. Let me also call up Martha Arevalo, Angelica Sales, Nativo Lopez, it's got stuck in traffic or something. Council member, thank you for joining us.
Would you like me to start?
I would.
Okay. Council members, I'm sitting here with a lot of pride. I've always been proud of Los Angeles, and when I ran for council, we didn't have the kind of representation we have today. And the city wasn't the city it is today. I'm here today because I wanted to express some realities of Los Angeles that nobody really wants to admit. When you look at the marble that surrounds this building, it came from all over the world. Our founding fathers, when they built City Hall, they had a clear understanding this was going to be an international city. And so they brought marble from all over the world. And those are the pillars in these chambers right now. I also need you to know that when you look at the big iron doors out in front of the building, there's these little mosaic paintings on them. One of them is honoring Governor Jose Figueroa. And it was because he made sure that public education was part of the state of California. Because in his era, they were trying to educate immigrants who were coming from the East Coast. You see, that's why a lot of our streets have names like St. Louis, Cincinnati, Indiana, Brooklyn. The reality was we were trying to make the immigrants feel comfortable, and we wanted them to have an education. And that's the legacy of California and Los Angeles. When the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed in David Ruth's district, the reality was we weren't part of the 13 colonies. We were part of an occupied state. So California has evolved very differently. And part of it's been because of our history with the Western Hemisphere, whether it be the Pacific Rim and our harbor and the kind of economic activity that happens there, or it be the relationships we have. The only time I was illegal was when I was in Mexico. And I was there for 6 years because from the time we were 4, my mom was running away from an abusive situation. And we had to live with an aunt in Tijuana. And then we came here. But I was born in Sunnyvale, Pleasanton, California. A proud 6th-generation Californian. Now, I'm sharing all this with you because you're getting ready to go to war. You see, INS, and I basically asked then Attorney General Dugmasian for an opinion as to whether immigration proceedings were criminal or civil. And the Attorney General of the state of California basically came back with the conclusion they were civil. And it was important because people who are being detained by immigration aren't given their rights. And we had a case called the Sabika shoe case where INS deported all these people. They picked them up from the shoe factory and they sent them out of the country without any proceedings whatsoever. And basically, the Legal Aid Foundation and Peter Shea and a bunch of other attorneys got together and filed a federal lawsuit. A federal judge ordered the buses back. And I wrote bonds for all those people who were detained. And you need to know that the people who were being deported were parents of children who had the right to immigrate their parents. There were also other people who had established equities. They'd been in this country for 10, 15 years. And a federal judge basically couldn't see it in his heart to deport them. So the reality is, because they were all out on bond, the United States had to put them through their proceedings. And what they found is most of them were immigrated. They had the right to immigrate. But the United States had basically taken a step to deport them all. You see, immigrants from the Western Hemisphere have a different quota system than immigrants from the Eastern Hemisphere. That requires them to wait much longer to get their green card, to get their documentation. And we're talking about 10, 15 years in an application process. You have the legal right to be here, but you cannot claim to be a legal resident until you get that card issued by INS. And nobody's talking about reforming that system. Nobody's talking about changing that system, processing people in a faster manner. They're talking about, let's get rid of people, and that reality isn't going to take us anyplace. I believe that part of the work we need to do as a city is an education campaign. It's an education campaign to the immigrant community and an education campaign to the people who aren't in this room. You see, the immigrant community needs to understand their rights so that they can defend themselves when INS approaches them and asks them for a green card. They need to understand their rights, and they need to be able to stand up for them so that we can try and provide them some protection. At the same time, we need to educate the non-immigrant community. Tell them the stories of our families, understand who their nannies are, understand who are the people who do the work and that they're not willing to do. But more important, understand that they're citizens of a city, citizens of a state. Their kids grew up here, they're part of it, and they're no different than our neighbors. Whether they be Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, those are the neighbors that surround me in my neighborhood in Lincoln Heights. I just want you to understand that we are a city of immigrants. I'm real proud of what I see the council doing. I think there has to be an education component to all our efforts, and we have to try and make sure that the federal government doesn't divide us. Doesn't divide us as a city, because we got to stand as a whole. I'm one of the guys who walked out of these chambers when one of my colleagues was trying to get us to basically back away from opposing 187. And we didn't have a majority of the votes. Everybody said you needed to learn how to count to 8. Well, we learned to count to 6 because we walked out of these chambers to break a quorum so they couldn't take the vote, and the city attorney could file a brief basically opposing Prop 187. Now, I'm sharing that because I don't see that happening today. I see the leadership standing up, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be an Angelino. I'm proud of the history of this state and the work that we're doing, and I just want to be supportive in any way I can. But all I've heard, I haven't heard the education part, and I just wanted to make sure that I brought it to the table, because we can talk to ourselves, but then be divided differently. And so we need to educate people as to why it is that someone's here. What does the term illegal mean versus being undocumented versus having the right to immigrate but sitting in limbo because INS doesn't process your paperwork? And it doesn't matter what kind of visa you're applying for. If you're from the Western Hemisphere, the line is just long. And those are the people that are vulnerable. My mother-in-law never got to vote for me, and she was in this country her entire life. But she never became a legal resident. My father-in-law did become a citizen and was able to vote for me. But my realities are my mother-in-law probably wanted to vote for me more. Those are my comments today. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Marta Arevalo.
Good evening, buenas noches. I am also proud to have been born in Los Angeles and work in Los Angeles, and I want to commend you for your leadership, Councilmember Cedillo, and all the members of this committee, for forming the committee, for seeing and having the leadership and the courage to stand up to an agenda of hate and exclusion and racism. As you can imagine, and as you know, Carecen, the Central American Resource Center, has been around for 34 years servicing and providing services for the immigrant community, particularly the Central American Salvadoran community. And the day after the election, there was a lot of fear in our families, in our clients, in our members. Today, we relived that, those results of the election. And unfortunately, the fear continues every day, and we, as people have mentioned, expect much worse to come. I'm glad to hear former council member Hernandez talk about education, because we are doing that every single day. We are providing Know Your Rights workshops and forums all over the city, all over the county, to ensure that people know their rights and what to do. We're also being even more aggressive in making sure that those stories, those testimonies of the lives and the families of immigrants are told to the rest of the city, to the rest of the state, and the rest of the country. Because we know that immigrant families contribute. We know that immigrant families and immigration is good for this economy. If you really believe in facts, then you can see all of the studies that show how immigrant communities are good for this country, are the present and the future of this country. They are what makes this country great already. We are here to support your work. We're here to ensure that you know that Carecen is open and willing to work with you to ensure that we can make a great city even better. We know we're not perfect. We know we're lucky and blessed to be here in Los Angeles. And there are some issues that we would love to continue to work with this committee and the City Council. For example, there's been a lot of conversation about Special Order 40 already, but we know that it's a policy that was developed in the 70s, and a lot has happened since the 70s. And it's important to really review this policy and update it to the reality that we live today. We know that there is collaboration at the city level, at the county level with ICE. We need to make sure that that stops immediately. We need to send a message at the national level that we will not, in Los Angeles, that we will not spend any resources for the city to deport families and to separate families. We commend this committee and the City Council for supporting the LA Justice Fund. We want to make sure that it's a fund that is available for everybody. We believe in due process. We believe that everybody in deportation proceedings or in detention deserves to have adequate legal representation, no matter what their record is, no matter their nationality, no matter their status, no matter their criminal record. It's important that we have universal representation for the people in our detention centers, and we know there's going to be mass deportations. So we need to make sure that we continue to support those efforts, and we commend and we thank the city for the investment in the LA Justice Fund. We also want to make sure, as Councilmember Hernandez mentioned, that we continue to educate our community and that we can utilize city resources and work with city departments to provide that education at the local level, at the neighborhood level. We are available. We also want to urge the City Council and this committee to support the California Values Act, SB 54, to ensure, again, that California continues to be a model of what this country should be, a model of accepting and supporting immigrants and understanding the contribution of immigrants to the state, to the city, and to this country. I also just want to mention that not only do we stand here in support of your work and willing to work with you and the LAPD and all those things that I mentioned, but we also stand in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters who also received a blow today, and there's many more to come. We also want to say that we stand in solidarity with all immigrants of all nationalities in all countries. We also want to say that we stand in solidarity with the LGBT community. We stand in solidarity with children. We stand in solidarity for families. We stand in solidarity with African American community. And we know that we cannot be divided, and we will show up for each other, and we will support each other in this time of need for all of us. Thank you.
Mr. Huizar, do you have a question?
Sure, I just wanted to, as the speaker was speaking, it reminded me that what we see today with the executive orders is an attempt to legislate and create laws based on a person's class, ethnicity, religion, and that's a dangerous path, something of which we haven't seen since World War II, when we interned a number of Japanese Americans, and we are now on that path. And whoever would have thought, I didn't think in my lifetime I'd see this again. And we are making laws based on a person's ethnicity, religion, and color. That's very, very dangerous. So that's what the president did today. As you were speaking, and reminded me about how he's creating these classes of immigrants and Muslims and others. And it's a very dangerous path that they're on. And thank you for your comments. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Martha Arevalo, thank you, the spokesperson for Carecen. I'm saying this for the record, so that the public record is clear that you are here today. Nativo Lopez with Hermandad Mexicana. Please, let me note here that this is one panel. We have one more panel from the community, and then after that we will have public comment from all of you who have submitted cards. And I thank all of you for your patience and cooperation with us this evening. I will be here. We are here till 9 o'clock, and I will be here until we hit that hour. Mr. Nativo Lopez, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for the invitation, Honorable Councilman Cedillo and council members. I appear before you today on behalf of Hermandad Mexicana Nacional, the original, your inaugural meeting to provide testimony on what Hermandad interprets as the most pressing concern of the day affecting immigrant communities of Los Angeles. As you are certainly aware, today President Trump signed various executive orders pertaining to immigration matters, all about enforcement, construction of the border wall with Mexico, significant increase of the budgets for immigration and customs enforcement and for Customs and Border Patrol, and denying federal funds to states and cities declaring their jurisdiction as sanctuary for immigrants. Therefore, my testimony addresses the need to safeguard against local authorities cooperating with federal authorities in their haste to remove undocumented immigrants from our midst. We are gratified by the positive pro-immigrant attitude expressed repeatedly by Mayor Eric Garcetti, the City Council, and Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie Beck, and the same can be said of Governor Jerry Brown and the California Legislature. However, we are concerned that these expressions of welcome, protection, and embracing of immigrants may not be institutional enough, which leads us to recommend to the Ad Hoc Committee on Immigrant Affairs and to the City Council that you endorse and actively support California Senate Bill 54, the California Values Act, which seeks to protect the safety and well-being of all Californians by ensuring that state and local resources are not used to fuel mass deportations, separate families, or divide Californians on the basis of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, immigration status, or national or ethnic origins. SB 54 upholds California's core values of equal treatment, community, family, unity, and common humanity by ensuring that California's police departments, schools, hospitals, and courts remain accessible to Californians from all walks of life. Immigrants are part of California's heart and soul and have deep roots in the neighborhoods and communities. At this time of rising national division and scapegoating of immigrant communities, the California Values Act reaffirms the state's commitment to valuing and protecting its immigrant communities and sends a powerful message of inclusion across the nation. California is already familiar with the harmful effects of entangling local law enforcement agencies with immigration enforcement. Prior to its termination, the discredited Secure Communities program operated in California as an indiscriminate mass deportation program at great cost to California, both financially and otherwise. According to a report prepared by Justice Strategies in 1220, under Secure Communities, California taxpayers spent an estimated $65 million annually to detain people for ICE. Continuing to tangle state and local public safety resources with the dirty business of deportations threatens the civil rights and safety of all who reside in California. Such actions foster racial profiling, police mistreatment, and wrongful arrest, which further undermine trust between local communities and law enforcement. In conclusion, we call on the Los Angeles Ad Hoc Committee on Immigrant Affairs and the Los Angeles City Council to endorse SB 54 as a first step in setting forth the City Council's priority to safeguarding the well-being of all immigrants and residents of the City of Los Angeles. Be the change you desire to see in the world. Thank you.
Angelica Salas with Sheila.
Good evening to all of you. The first thing I want to say is thank you so very much for your leadership and your courage, and also for all my colleagues who are sitting in this audience today. It is the courage, it is this courage, and it is this leadership that is bringing light into a very, very dark day. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I was brought here as an undocumented child. My mom and my father were undocumented. I lived through the deportation of my mother through a worksite raid. I remember when there were raids on buses and on all modes of transportation. But luckily, like Councilmember Huizar, I too was benefited by the program, a program of legalization when my brother was born. And that has made all the difference in my life. And it is for that reason that we keep having to fight so that individuals have opportunity in this country and that the undocumented are not persecuted. President Trump today issued executive orders. And in signing these executive orders, he has made his hateful rhetoric a reality in this country. It is now policy. The policy seeks to continue to blame immigrants for the ills of society, but it also wants to reinstitute programs, immigration enforcement programs such as Secure Communities that have been found to be unconstitutional. We have to stand against these programs. These programs have already harmed our city. They've already harmed our state, and that is why the state of California stood up to these programs and passed the Trust Act. We applaud the formation of this committee. It is formed in the most important of times. We have to defend ourselves against the federal government. We believe the creation of the Immigrant Advocate is a wonderful idea, and we support it. We want that immigrant advocate to work with the immigrant rights organizations that have long-standing efforts in this city, and that work of the immigrant advocate complement and strengthen those efforts. We also believe the city should develop a long-term strategy. Many of us have lived through the raids of the 70s and 80s, and also Prop 187, and we know how hateful that moment was and how terrible and scared we were. But what we did during that time was we invested in citizenship. We investment in empowerment of our community. And that is why we can say today in the city of Los Angeles and the state of California that we have a different reality. Let's not lose track of where we have to invest in the power of our people. We believe that they're complementing the immigrant advocate. We should have a commission for immigrant integration made up of immigrant rights organizations and immigrant and stakeholders, broad stakeholders that actually put forward that investment in the long term. The president seeks to malign our city, calling us a sanctuary city. A sanctuary city is a term that was used during the 80s when we were seeking to protect Central American refugees from being deported and sent back to the death that they would surely find because there was civil war in their countries. Today, the times have changed, but the need to be a sanctuary remains. We should not run away from the term sanctuary. What is a sanctuary city? A sanctuary city is one that embraces and welcomes immigrants and refugees. It's one that recognizes the contributions of its immigrant and refugees, and one that is willing to tell its law enforcement that their duty is to protect and serve everyone regardless of immigration status. A sanctuary city also stands up to ICE. The regional ICE director is just a couple of blocks away. My expectation is we stand up to ICE. ICE and detention and removal and the horrible jail immigration jail that's just around the corner. We got to stand up to him. And in the same way we're taking to task our local law enforcement, we need to hold accountable and pressure in all our possibility the regional ICE director. President Trump seeks to reintroduce ESCOM. It seeks, as you stated earlier, Councilmember Huizar, it also seeks not just to punish people who have been convicted of crimes, but also those who've been charged or suspected of crimes. So we have to be vigilant when it comes to criminal justice. When we have to not abandon all the criminal justice reforms that we have advanced in this city and in this state. That means that individuals have to have due process. And so we stand with all our brothers and sisters who are fighting to reform our criminal justice system so that it's fair. And so we also want to make sure that we stand, and so I support my colleagues in the call to support the Values Act, SB 54. It is critical that this the entire council endorse SB 54, as well as AB 208 by Eggman, that allows defendants with prior violent offenses or convictions within 5 years of their arrest to enroll in drug treatment programs for 6 months to a year before entering a guilty plea. Many individuals who are deported on criminal convictions are drug related, so we need to make sure that we advance in that regard. And finally, I want us to invest in legal services and the infrastructure to defend our community. CHIRLA runs an immigrant assistance hotline, as you very well know. We receive on a daily basis hundreds upon hundreds of calls with questions from our community. We provide legal services. We need to continue to invest in those legal services. And we're also, like Carecen, and in partnership with Carecen and many other organizations, we're educating our community about their rights. We want to make sure that the council uses all its distribution capacity to inform the community about their constitutional rights. The last thing I want to say is the day that Donald Trump became president was not the day that our Constitution died. Our community is protected by the Constitution of the United States, by the Bill of Rights, by due process protections, and by every single law that we have passed in the last 10 years in the state of California. For that reason, we have given each one of the council members a listing of all the California laws that protect immigrants, so that we can inform our community that they are protected by laws that we have passed in these last couple of years. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Before we call up our next panel, which will be Salvador Sanabria, Kip Ustache, Mark Masaoka, and Betty Hung, let me say, and then we'll hear from my colleagues, we will embrace your recommendation on the matter of SB 54, and we will bring that from the committee to the council this Friday and move it within the most appropriate and most expeditious process of the city for support of SB 54. Yes.
Mr. President, as you were mentioning sanctuary cities, I got a news alert on my phone that said President Trump will publish a weekly list of crimes committed by undocumented immigrants as a way to pressure sanctuary cities. I mean, if that's not a declaration of war and intimidation, I don't know what is. But I wanted to get back to what Mr. Hernandez was suggesting earlier, because I couldn't agree with you more in terms of education and making sure that our community knows their rights. I want this committee to actually explore our capacity to execute a citywide community engagement strategy, possibly with some of the partners that are here, as a way to make the public aware of their rights. And we need to do that. I don't know if it's a recommendation that we can push forward out of this committee, but I think we need to seriously consider that as a way to inform our community of their rights, of what organizations are there to help them, and make sure that we're connecting them to the right resources. And as a city, we need to figure out what kind of capacity building we need to do that.
Yes. Okay. If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you. I just wanted to underline something that Ms. Salas brought up, and that is that we should not only make a clear message that the city of Los Angeles will not do the federal government's job with law enforcement, but that we should be willing to stand up against ICE.
We can't hear you, Councilman.
I think what you said, earlier about the raids in the 70s and 80s, I grew up in those, and I recall as a kid, if you were walking down the street and you were Mexican or Latino, you were suspect. Right. And we don't want to create that again.
Thank you.
Mr. Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the panelists, and thank you, Mike, for always giving us great education, and thank you to Churla, Caresen, and all the groups. But as the chair of Health, Mental Health, and Education, I mean, and I think every member here would love to explore some sort of educational component that we could do, and not just citywide, as Councilwoman Martinez has said, but maybe even in our existing advocacy or existing educational trainings, like for housing rights or for senior fraud issues. Maybe we could incorporate immigrant rights, because in many occasions these are the same populations we're talking about. So maybe we'll also expand Councilwoman Martinez's motion into looking at existing educational programs that the city already does that we could add on to. But we will be discussing it further. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a recommendation that I put forward, so.
Yes, we will take note and work with our departments and figure out how we move that forward. Thank each and every one of you for your time tonight. We are all engaged. We are here united in our efforts to protect this precious city. Let me ask Salvador Sanabria to join us. Kip Hustache from Maldiv, Salvador Sanabria from El Rescate, Mark Masaoka from Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, and Betty Hoon from the Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles. As you settle in, we're going to ask for a 2-minute break for our translator. Just a 2-minute break for everybody. Take a nice deep breath. Okay? Thank you. Hey. Hello? Can we get everybody back, please? I want to bring up Scott Svanken, President of the Los Angeles Community College District. We will, are you prepared, sir? Yes. Mr. Svanken was on the earlier agenda.
Thank you, Council Member Cedillo, Chairman. I apologize for being late. We had our board meeting this evening, and so I had to
Share that
preside.
meeting. You have to be at two places at one time. We understand that.
Yeah. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and our 200,000 students, I want to thank you for your work here tonight and your leadership and the members of the committee, Council Members Price, Rue, and Martinez, and Weezar, for looking out for all the residents of LA. Our district, as you know, serves cities in addition to Los Angeles. So your work, in addition to the County of Los Angeles, is critical to thousands of LA community college students who are undocumented. It has been our stated policy since December that our district will do everything in its power to protect the confidentiality of our students' information, that we will we've worked with the LA County Sheriff's Department to make sure that our students understand that no student will be bothered. They will be protected on our campuses. As long as students don't commit a crime, the Sheriff's Department will protect them. The only interaction the Sheriff's Department will have with those students that commit crimes. And we've been assured, as you may have read in the LA Times by Sheriff Jim McDonald, but our captain of our LA Community College Bureau is having meetings with students and student leaders to make sure students feel safe. The number one thing our board is hoping to do is to make sure that our students feel safe on our colleges, that the community feels safe on our colleges. And so I come here to share our position that no student will, or student information will be turned over to the federal government, that we will do everything we can to protect them. I have to share with you a letter from our chancellor and every college president to our student body that says that, and that's for the record, and our resolution that was passed unanimously by our board that talks about our over 250,000 students. We have 10,000 or more students, DACA students, that we educate every year and we treat our students the same. It doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter what country, what zip code, what background, what their sexual orientation is. At LA Community Colleges, as you know, everyone's welcome, and we will continue to welcome them. And so I'd like to submit those two documents for the record. And I do want to tell you that it is my commitment as president of the board that I have, with the chancellor, have begun to assemble a task force made up of students, faculty, staff, and administrators to look at how do we make sure that not only do our students feel safe, but we can protect them and their information. And so what the City of LA is doing in conjunction with the County of Los Angeles is critical, because we don't have the resources to defend every student. We will protect their information, but the work that you're going to do tonight and going forward to help protect students in everything they do is so critical. And so I'm just here to lend our support to your efforts and to tell you that our commitment is that our colleges will be places that are safe for everyone in the community. From East Los Angeles to the San Fernando Valley, from the San Fernando Valley to San Pedro, our campuses are a place where people can go to get an education, either inexpensive or free, and we're going to continue to do that irrespective of what happens outside of California. We're determined to work closely with the city, this county, and the state to protect every single student, and I appreciate your interest in allowing me to speak tonight, and anything we can do to assist. We want to welcome your resources and services onto our campuses. We want to make facilities available for meetings, education, the legal clinics. We want our students to, not only the thousands of students we have, to access it, but the communities. We have easy parking and facilities, and we want you to see us, Councilman, Chairman, as a willing and able partner. We don't have money to contribute to the effort to legal fees to protect our students, but everything short of that we are happy to do, and I am honored to be here representing my 6 colleagues and the over 200,000 students, the over 6,000 faculty that every day go to work to get a better life and to get an education so they can take care of their families. Our students are the hardest working people in education, and therefore the work you're going to do tonight and going forward is so critical. And the majority of our colleges are in Los Angeles, and the majority of our students come from your city. And so we're honored to be a part of it, and hope to help you in your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues. Salvador, Sanabria, el rescate, por favor.
Thank you, Council Member Cedillo and Chair of this ad hoc committee, as well Council Member Wizard, Martinez, Price, and Ryu for inviting me to speak before your committee tonight. First of all, I want to commend the leadership of Council President Herb Wesson in taking action with the support of your work in this ad hoc committee. Putting together this committee to advocate and defend the immigrant rights of a diverse immigrant community in Los Angeles is a pressing matter and issue. The organization I represent was created 35 years ago, and throughout those 3 decades has represented in immigration court proceedings and asylum petition processes thousands of immigrants. Currently, We serve more than 38 different immigrant nationalities, but the majority of them come from Mexico and 3 countries in Central America: Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And that takes me to President Trump outlined priorities in his speech in the headquarters of Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security. The specific focus on Central America when referring to the U.S. southern border crisis, signaling that Central American immigrants are the cause of undermining the security of Mexico and the United States. Los Angeles, you know, is the capital of the Central American diaspora in the world. And we've been facing this humanitarian, non-recognized crisis since 2014 on the record. And the majority of those kids and adults come to the new Ellis Island, Los Angeles, where they need assistance in legal representation with few resources. That's why we want to commend your contribution to the Legal Defense Fund for these immigrants in court proceedings and asylum petitions. President Trump's statement dissuading the Central American illegal immigration is an ominous message targeting Central Americans, putting at risk their physical integrity and lives with this new policy. We also call upon the governments of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to end their silence and take action on behalf of their citizens, probably cooperating with this ad hoc committee. We refuse the intentions of the governments of Mexico and the U.S. to use Central American immigrants as bargaining chips and scapegoats in the upcoming bilateral negotiations between President Peña Nieto and President Trump on Tuesday next week. We denounce the indifference of the Northern Triangle Central American governments and their submission to Mexican foreign policy in detriment of the rights of their own national citizens. We call upon all immigrant rights advocate organizations to denounce this new policy that will violate the rights of thousands of Central Americans with legitimate rights to be recognized as refugees, asylum seekers, and other immigration reliefs. We emphatically condemn the new proposed detention centers that could become modern internment camps in the United States. Finally, we call upon the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner of Refugees to closely monitor the new regional situation and human rights for Central American immigrants, as he outlined it today in his speech. I would like also to submit for the record recommendations for the role this ad hoc committee will play in the near future, as well the advocate for immigrant rights, and colleagues of mine, members of the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles and the Full Rights for Immigrant Coalition will submit recommendations as a result of 3 workshops with people's participations in Pico Union Westlake, South Central, and East LA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kip Eustache, Maldev.
Good evening. My name is Kip Eustace, and I am a staff attorney at MALDA, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund.
I just made you a Mexican. Go ahead.
MALDEF is a national legal nonprofit with headquarters in Los Angeles and offices in D.C., San Antonio, Chicago, Sacramento, and Atlanta. Our mission is to protect and to promote the civil rights of Latinos in the United States, particularly in the areas of employment, education, voting, and immigrants' rights. Recently, for example, we have represented undocumented parents of American children in defending the previous administration's grant of deferred action to them. And we have represented deferred action recipients who have been denied driver's licenses by the state of Arizona. MALDEF also participated in the successful challenge to Prop 187 here in California. Therefore, we are very grateful that the City Council values the protection of immigrants and their communities, understands the contributions that they make to our society, and has decided to convene this committee. Forcing some members of society to live in the shadows and threatening to sunder families and friends, as some in power now would do, are unjust means to unjust ends. Detrimental federal policies that target undocumented Americans or that seek to roll back progress that has been made in establishing an ever more just immigration system will suppress participation in public life. They will discourage undocumented family members from taking part in their children's public education, from attending community events, even city council meetings. They will hinder law enforcement and the protection of civil rights, deterring undocumented victims and witnesses and their friends and families from reporting crimes as well as coming forward to seek redress. They will also embolden some local governments as well as private actors across the nation to harass, to discriminate against, and to treat unlawfully those they perceive as not real Americans. But in the face of all this, we will stand strong, and we appreciate the city standing strong. And we suggest that no city agency collect information related to immigration status, and that it destroy as soon as possible any such information that it does possess or collect. Excepting narrow circumstances, there is no general federal requirement that local governments collect or retain information regarding immigration status. The federal law on this only relates to the provision of such information to the federal government. Because we are and aspire to be a nation of people who look out for each other, it is crucial now more than ever that we undertake the often difficult work of protecting the most vulnerable among us. As we are all aware, in light of executive orders issued today from the White House, the most vulnerable at this moment include immigrants, refugees, and their families and communities. We look forward to working with you on their behalf. Thank you for your time.
Betty Hung, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Los Angeles.
Hi, I'm Betty Hung, the Policy Director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles. We're formerly known as the Asian Pacific American Legal Center. We are the nation's largest civil rights and legal organization in the country, serving Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders in solidarity and partnership with all underserved communities. I want to thank all of the council members today for standing up for justice and standing up for American values. Because what we saw today with this the executive order signed by this new president, that was nothing less than an attack on American values of liberty, equality, and justice for all. And we are here today to say that we stand with you in standing up for American values and standing up for being a city, a state, and a nation of immigrants. And by standing up for immigrants, we are upholding our Constitution and our American values and the very best of what our democracy stands for. We also stand in unity with all the communities who are being targeted under this new administration. African Americans and other communities of color, LGBTQ communities, Muslim communities, women, the differently abled. And I think it is by really standing in unity and ensuring that we uphold our values that we will ensure that the Japanese incarceration that we witnessed in World War II, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which is still to this date the only U.S. law that specifically prohibited immigration to this country on the basis of race and ethnicity. We must not return to those days. And so we look to you as our LA City Council members, the most diverse city in the nation with the largest immigrant population. We stand And we look to you to be our leaders and to work in partnership with our communities. And so we thank you. I want to highlight a few of the recommendations that we have and how we can ensure that we protect our immigrant and refugee communities. First, as other speakers have mentioned, we urge you to endorse and support SB 54, the California Values Act, introduced by Senate President Pro Tem Kevin De Leon. Second, we urge you to ensure that no city resources, funding, staff, or space are used, or law enforcement are used to contribute to President Trump's deportation machine. There is no legal requirement that would mandate that the city do so. The city has the constitutional right to ensure that no city resources are used to contribute to President Trump's deportation machine. Third, we applaud the establishment of the LA Justice Fund, and we urge you to ensure that principles of universality and inclusiveness are upheld so that all immigrants in deportation proceedings, especially those in detention, have access to legal counsel. 68% of detained immigrants in California are unrepresented. And we know that when detained immigrants who have legal counsel, they are 5 times more likely to succeed. So we urge that in the implementation of the LA Justice Fund, that the principle of universality be upheld. And fourth, as other speakers have mentioned, we also urge that the city protect the privacy and information of all residents, including staff, city staff, and students. One, by preventing collection of unnecessary information about immigration status, and two, protecting that private information. No one should have to fear that when they speak to a city employee or meet with a teacher or social worker, that information will be used to facilitate their deportation or to create an unconstitutional Muslim registry. And fifth, we also urge the updating of Special Order 40. It was drafted in 1979, and while it is a hallmark of the city's policies and framework of protecting immigrants, especially under this new era, it must be updated to ensure that in this 21st century and in this era of President Trump and his hateful, not just rhetoric, but now policies against immigrants, that Special Order 40 is updated. We also know that Muslim communities are being targeted by this administration. And so in this vein, we have 2 main recommendations. First, the city of LA must make clear that it will not comply with the Muslim registry or any kind of database targeting people based on religion, race, or national origin. We urge the city to also endorse and support SB 31, introduced or authored by Senator Ricardo Lara, that would ensure that state and local agencies and personnel do not participate in or use agency resources to create a registry, list, or database of individuals based on religious beliefs, practices, affiliations, national origin, or ethnicity. And I would just note that both SB 54 and SB 31 are slated to be heard in committee next week. So it would be essential, I think, and very timely for the City Council to publicly and officially endorse both SB 54 and SB 31. And finally, we also would urge that the city take a look at the nearly $1 million that it will be receiving from the federal government under the so-called Countering Violent Extremism program, which in particular targets Muslim communities. And we believe that the basic premise of the CVE program is that Muslim communities are inherently radicalized, and so that these harmful stereotypes and unwarranted targeting will hurt these communities. And especially in light of this new administration that is so that has expressed such open hostility to Muslim communities, we urge that the city, one, ensure transparency in how it's going to use these and how it would plan to use these funds, and two, we actually urge the city to decline these funds because of the tremendous risk that it will be abused to harm Muslim Americans. And finally, we urge the city of LA to fight against any efforts by the Trump administration to strip away federal funding because of so-called sanctuary policies. sanctuary policies, it is the constitutional right of local municipalities to establish policies that protect immigrants and uphold immigrant integration. And we believe that it would be unconstitutional for the Trump administration to try to strip away those federal funds. So we stand with you. We pledge to stand with you in partnership and to fight as hard as we can to ensure that the city retains its federal funding and that we have the strongest pro-immigrant, pro-refugee, pro-Muslim, pro-every community policies in the nation. And so we thank you and we pledge to work with you.
Mark Masaoka.
Thank you. I'm Mark Masaoka with the Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, or APCON. We're an association of 40 API nonprofit organizations in the county, but mostly we're based here in Los Angeles. I'm going to take a little different tack from Betty, but let me first say that my organization fully agrees with the policy recommendations that she's made and her critique of what the Trump administration is trying to do and is doing. Just before, when we were here earlier, Councilman Ryu asked me to talk about some of the ways in which we can better serve and engage the API community. So I'm going to sort of focus on that. We're trying to raise the profile and prominence of the understanding that the undocumented are an Asian Pacific Islander issue too, and that's not what's generally been reflected in the media. And even though a majority or nearly 60% of the APIs that are in the city and in the county are foreign-born, the percentages in polling that support immigrant rights is not as high as it is in other communities. And I think that's one of the challenges which our organizations are trying to meet. And some of the challenges are that there is still a sense of stigma and shame about being undocumented. And partly that's reflected in the fact, or reinforced by the fact, that the consulates of Asian countries sometimes look at us as being the undocumented as being an embarrassment. And they've been often very slow and not very helpful in our undocumented persons getting the kinds of documents that are needed to be able to get driver's license and things like that. And so the important, I think, the step is to go and work with trusted organizations that have the roots in the communities to work with these undocumented communities. We're beginning to step up to the plate. Today we had a press conference. I want to express appreciation to Councilman Ryu, to Scott Sponkin, Supervisor Solis, and members or I should say the president of the Board of Education for LAUSD, were there to stand with 30 Asian Pacific Islander organizations to express our full support for the steps that the city and the county are taking, including the LA Justice Fund, including the steps of working to provide security for the private information of our community members, their students, and the students' families. So I commend the council members here today, the mayor, the council president, for the steps that you're taking in leadership in this coming battle to protect immigrant rights. And we look to working with you a lot in the future, and we look for strengthening our capacity to engage this battle. Thank you.
Mr. Masaoka, it's always good to see you. Fortunately, we have to see you under these circumstances, but in addition to being an incredible leader for the API community, you're an incredible trade unionist at Local 660, and I think that work needs to be acknowledged. We are now prepared to go to public comment. Everyone will be given a minute. If we stay concise, exact, precise in our language, we can get through most of the list here and be out of here at 9 o'clock as we are limited. Devin Porter, Gloria Saucedo, Cynthia Anderson Barker, Norma Fajado. Please go up to the mic. 1 minute, everybody, please. Devin Porter.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Gloria Saucedo y represento a Hermandad Mexicana Transnacional en el Valle de San Fernando. Yo estoy aquí por 3 motivos principales. Los niños, como Nuri dijo, los niños son los importantes. Después de que Donald Trump ganó, llegó a la oficina un niño con su familia llorando porque iba a ser deportado. La otra niña fue una niña del Valle de San Fernando que dejó a su familia y se fue a Roma a buscar.
The other girl was a girl from San Fernando that left her family and went to San Fernando to look for.
Fue del Valle de San Fernando y dejó a su familia y se fue hasta Roma.
She left her family in the Valley of San Fernando and went to Roma to Jesse
para
Vargas
hablar con el Papa
to talk
Francisco.
to the Pope Francisco.
La otra niña
The other
fue
girl,
también a la oficina del Valle de San Fernando
she also went to
y nos
the
dio
Valley
un
of San
poema
Fernando and
que
gave us a
dijo,
poem
no te rindas.
and told me, do
Y
not
esa
defeat.
niña es Sofía Cruz.
That girl is Sofia Cruz.
Que después de su poema
After
nos
her
motivó
poem,
a todos y una delegación se
with
fue
that
a
delegation
Washington
went
D.C.
to
otra
Washington
vez
D.C.
a hablar
again to talk
con el Papa.
with the Pope.
Esos son los niños valientes que
Those
tenemos
are the
en Los
kids that are very courageous in Los
Son los
Angeles.
niños que tienen el coraje de ir a luchar por sus familias.
These are the kids that go and fight for their families.
Nosotros somos parte de la resistencia.
We're part of the resistance.
Y todos los que estamos aquí
And everybody
somos
that is
parte
here,
de esa
we're part of
resistencia.
that resistance.
Estamos con la ciudad de Los
We're
Ángeles
here with the city of
y
Los
vamos
Angeles.
a seguir luchando
And
por
we're going to
ellos.
continue fighting with them.
Tenemos que luchar las mujeres
We have to
por lo
fight
que
the
es
women
más sagrado,
for more
las
sacred,
familias.
the
Y
families.
estamos presentes
We're here
en la
present
resistencia.
in the resistance.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias, Gloria. Devin Porter.
Hi, my name is Devin Porter. I'm with the ACLU of Southern California, and I just wanted to reiterate a lot of what you guys have already heard tonight, the testimony from MALDEF and others. The most important tool to protect immigrants in Los Angeles and the state right now is the California Values Act, SB 54. So I want to reiterate what others have said in urging the City Council to support that bill. And in addition, we really want to laud the efforts that the City Council has made so far in supporting the LA Justice Fund, and just want to make sure that that continues to guarantee that all immigrants in deportation proceedings and who are detained are able to receive access to counsel. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Cynthia Anderson Barker.
Cynthia Anderson Barker with the National Lawyers Guild. We've been running free legal clinics for the past 7 or 8 years for both street vendors and folks who were arrested and received misdemeanors for driving unlicensed because they didn't have status and couldn't get licenses. So one request I would have is that we ask the city attorney to look at the feasibility of declaring an amnesty for street vendors who have prior tickets and looking at, yes. And also, of course, I just looked at Special Order 40, and it appears that it has to be changed right away. The language requires the LAPD to immediately report to ICE folks who have multiple misdemeanors. So our street vendors have multiple misdemeanors. This has to be changed quickly. And of course, finally, support for the California Values Act. Are you guys going to fix that and do a resolution and support it through the council?
Yes. Still, the answer is still yes. Still yes. Dr. Walter Contreras, Ana Grande, Melvin Valiente, Philip Castruita, and Jessica Hansen. Please come up. Senor.
My name is Walter Contreras. I represent the National Latino Evangelical Coalition, NALEC. Also, I'm a pastor of the Pasadena Presbyterian Church. And we are on a sacred resistant mode, many churches, and we are with city. We find it very important that we got to make sure we not complied with a Muslim registry and any database targeting people based on religion, race, and national origin. The city should send a strong signal today that it opposes Trump's measures, scapegoating people from the Muslim countries. And I affirm the fact that the LAPD should update their Special Order 40. The policy intends to promote public safety by protecting immigrants. It is outdated, drafted in 1979, and does not do enough to protect the city's diverse population beyond what is already mandated by law. LAPD should act to live up to its intent and clearly and unequivocally state that it will not cooperate with deportation.
Thank you.
I am Melvin Variente, the pastor of First Baptist Church of Maywood, and also one of the leaders of the Coalition of Latino Pastors from Los Angeles. As pastors of this city that has millions of undocumented families, we have seen the cry of those children who have been left without their parents, whose only crime was to come to this country looking for a better life, to give a better future to their children. We are here to support you. We are here to join the resistance. We are here to say that a lot of Latino pastors are also fighting and being part of this resistance on behalf of those who don't have a voice. We are here to support them. We are here to fight for them. And we are here also to pray for them because we know that there is a powerful God who fights the causes of those who don't have any power.
Amen.
My name is Philip Castruita with the Foundation for Economic and Social Justice in Los Angeles. I want to commend the council for its efforts. I also want to endorse what the Asian American Justice Committee said, and I also want to make sure that the most important idea is to protect immigrant rights. And the California Values Act, I think, is an important part in doing that. I also want to make sure that and urge that this group uphold the critical due process protection by supporting the LA Justice Fund and guaranteeing that all immigrants in deportation proceedings have legal counsel. I want to remind the committee that there is precedent for this. Back in the 1970s, during the raids, or after the raids, Mayor Bradley and Vice Mayor Grace Davis established an organization called One Stop Immigration, which did offer legal services. Follow that model, possibly. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your decades of service.
Hi, my name is Jessica Hansen. I'm an attorney at the National Immigration Law Center, and I'm also here as part of the ICE Out of LA coalition. The election of Donald Trump, as you've heard and as you know, has created a crisis across the nation and in our communities, and we really need the city to act with the urgency required in this moment. I'm very encouraged to hear the comments that you all have made throughout this evening. It is heartening to hear that you are ready to take action, and I would just really encourage you to really take concrete steps. I would reiterate support for the California Values Act, and also would urge you to adopt sanctuary policies that prevent the collection of unnecessary immigration information about immigration status of individuals and protect private information collected about LA City residents, and also prohibiting any local resources, including law enforcement, from being used for immigration enforcement. As someone mentioned earlier, while LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department have made statements supporting their immigrant communities, they have actually been cooperating with ICE, and we would like to see that stop completely.
Thank you. Ana Grande, Carlos Vaquerano, Ismael Parra, Chris Newman, Caitlin Ballas, and Nicole Miller.
Good evening. My name is Ana Grande, and I am a proud daughter of Salvadoran immigrants in Los Angeles. I'm also the community organizing director for Clínica Romero, and Clínica Romero was founded by Salvadoran refugees 33 years ago. I'm here to thank you on behalf of our over 12,000 patients for what you're doing here today. And as you seek an advocate for immigration affairs, please consider a whole person model that health access not be denied to anybody in this city. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carlos Vaquerano,
Good
thank
evening.
you for your presence tonight.
Mr. President, members of the committee, my name is Carlos Baquerano. I'm the Executive Director of SALEF, the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund. And I'm here to support your efforts and to congratulate you for your leadership. I'm especially here to advocate for the thousands of Salvadorian and Central Americans unaccompanied minors that are in danger of deportation, and also for the DACA students who, as you probably know, there are more than 750,000 of them that are also in danger. 36 years ago, many of us came to this country, and I was remembering those days, but I just cannot compare the fear of thousands of immigrants that are going to so much concern for today's executive orders by President Trump. So I urge you that if you decide to hire somebody to do this job, to hire somebody who has the commitment, the legal experience, and especially the experience of working for immigrant rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Bellis, and I'm an attorney with Public Counsel. I urge the council to take all measures that you possibly can to protect our immigrant communities. Now is the time for action, and we must ensure that no one gets caught up in Trump's deportation machine. The first way to do this is to ensure strong support for SB 54, that's the California Values Act, to update Special Order 40, to ensure that we are not using any of Los Angeles' resources to help with immigration enforcement, and then once people are in removal proceedings, to ensure that their due process rights are protected by providing them counsel. Thank you for your support of the LA Justice Fund. We hope that you, and we urge you to make sure it remains as inclusive and as broad as possible, providing counsel for all immigrants in removal proceedings, and especially those who are in detention. Thank you.
My name's Nicole Miller, and I'm an attorney with the Immigrant Defenders Law Center. I'm here today to urge our city to continue defending our immigrant communities. While President Trump moves to build walls and instill fear, our city must work to build robust protections for all its residents. I urge the city to strengthen its current sanctuary city policy and to make clear that Los Angeles will not comply with the Muslim registry. Los Angeles cannot and will not do Trump's dirty work. Finally, thank you for your investment in the LA Justice Fund. I urge you to ensure it's based on principles of inclusiveness and provides legal representation for all people in deportation proceedings. In the wise words of one of my heroes, Sophie Cruz, let us fight with love, faith, and courage so that our families will not be destroyed.
Chris Newman, Maria Ortiz, Dr. Erica Hawkes, Renee Alvarez, and Sofia Cortez. Sir.
Yes, I'd like to, my name is Ismael Parra. My mother and father were Leroy and Jesse Parra. I'm a citizen just like they were, and we go back many generations before the border divided our people. I want to thank you and commend you for the leadership you're showing here with regard to immigrants that have found a home and are contributing to the building of a society and a nation. At a moment when refugees all over the world are escaping from war and from poverty caused by forces of money that are well represented in the Trump administration. I hope that you will be able to take the presentations made by the panels and that information and pass it on to the other city councils in the state of California, as well as maybe through the mayor to the National Council of Mayors.
Thank you.
And also to extend these proceedings to the...
Thank you, Ismael. Got that. Chris Newman, Maria Ortiz.
Megan Ortiz, I hope maybe that's it. I don't know.
SEIU, USWW?
No, Maria Ortiz.
Maria Ortiz. Okay, Dr. Erica Huckus. Renee Alvarez. And Sofia Cortez.
Good evening. Council members, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Renee Alvarez, and I am the chair of the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles PAC. I am here in support of this ad hoc and the 6 motions. I am also here to give you these 2 different reports that we have on the 5 grass top leader meetings that we had across the city and the 3 regional townhouses that we had co-facilitated with the California Rising Collaborate. We will find specific details on our work, and we hope to become a part with this committee as we move forward. Lastly, I would like to thank Council President Wesson for working with us in creating this ad hoc committee, and thank all of you for your leadership in serving on this committee, especially Councilman Cedillo and Vice Chair Huizar. I don't know who I give the documents to.
Sergeant, please.
Thank you.
Sofia Cortez, Joseph Vera, Angel Elizarde, Margarita Montañez, and Alana Holt.
Good evening. My name is Sofia Cortez. I'm the Executive Director for SANA, the Salvadorian American National Association, and also member of the Advisory Board for the Latino Coalition, PAC of Los Angeles, and also proud Salvadorian American immigrant who came to this country as a child. I want to thank the leadership of Councilman Wesson and also the leadership of this committee. But also I want to thank, and I'm honored to be in the presence of so many leaders and organizations who I grew up as a child in the 80s doing the fight that we must renew today. I think they deserve a round of applause for being here at 8:30 p.m., still fighting. So I'm honored to be on the floor with all of you. I am in full support of this committee, and we are committed to make sure that the fight continues. We did 3 town hall meetings in districts 14, 10, and 9 with over 400 engaged citizens, but that's not enough. I leave you with a Dr. King's quote. We will not remember the words of our enemies, but we will remember the words of our friends who forget to fight.
Thank you. Margarita.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Margarita Montañez y yo soy parte de Chirla.
My name is Margarita Montañez. I am a member of Chirla.
Y muchas gracias por
Thank you
el
so much
apoyo que nos están dando.
for the opportunity you are giving us.
Nosotros somos, Chirla es personas muy trabajadoras.
We represent Chirla. We are people that work really hard.
Pero también muchas gracias por su apoyo, que lo necesitamos mucho.
Thank you so much for your support. We really need your support.
Nosotros no tenemos miedo al agua. Marchamos el viernes,
We
marchamos
are
el
not
sábado.
afraid of the water. We march on Friday.
No nos importó la lluvia.
We
porque
did not care the rain.
estamos luchando por los inmigrantes,
We're fighting for
porque
the immigrants.
ellos son muy trabajadores.
They are hard workers.
Salimos de las carreteras y los que vemos allí son los que están vendiendo naranjas.
We are helping all of those that are salesmen, that they sell oranges.
Gracias, señor concejal Gil Cedillo.
We want to thank Mr. Cedillo. Thank you so much for your support, and we expect that you support us always, because our families and the immigrants, we are hard workers. We are not thieves. We don't fight. Thank you so much.
Gracias. Thank you. Mr. Berra.
Good evening, council members. My name is Joseph Berra. I'm clinical faculty at UCLA Law School, and I direct projects in the Immigrant Rights Policy Clinic and the International Human Rights Clinic. My first point tonight is that this is all about good governance, the policies that you're considering tonight. And nothing in these policies violates federal law. So the executive order today, which seeks to instill fear in the hearts of local governments, please do not succumb to the fear of the section cited there of 1373, because nothing in these strong policies will violate federal law, and they are totally defensible. Remember the 10th Amendment. You're exercising your right and jurisdiction over the local community to support these policies. And please also remember that the criminal justice system is not a tool of immigration enforcement, and immigration enforcement is not a tool of the criminal justice system.
Thank you.
Disentangle those two systems, and I'll leave with you a copy of the report that we did on the entanglement of ICE and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
In collaboration with ICE.
I have to inform everyone that putting up signs and posters is not permissible during these public meetings. Angel Elizalde. Alana Holt.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alana Holt. I'm a staff attorney at Immigrant Defenders Law Center in downtown Los Angeles. I represent immigrants in detention and removal proceedings who have serious mental illness. I'm here to also echo the support for, or the urging the committee to immediately endorse SB 54, the California Values Act, as well as updating Special Order 40. Currently, local law enforcement does have access to my clients because of the criminal justice system. To echo the professor's concerns, the criminal justice system is currently being used as a tool of immigration enforcement. All of my clients have spent vastly more time in immigration jail and immigration detention than they ever spent on their criminal case. And so I would urge the committee to look right now at those policies, because the current administration will be able to use the criminal justice system as a tool in a very, very dangerous deportation machine. Thank you.
Raul Hinojosa. Angel, last call for Angel Elizalde. Jordan from Public Counsel, Jordan Cunning. Shi-Muing Chair from National Immigration Law Center. Emmy McLean. Leonardo Gusan. And Jasmine Castillo, SCIU, USWW. Mr. Hinojosa.
Councilman Cedillo, good afternoon, evening to the rest of the council. I'm just speaking here on behalf of the University of California, Los Angeles North American Integration and Development Center, announcing that we have created a network of University of California assets in Washington, D.C. and in Mexico, as well as throughout California, to sustain a database and critical research and policy program on the alternatives and the impacts that to President Trump's recent set of announcements today and those going forward. I just wanted to make that information available to you. This database exists now for us to understand the actual very important economic contributions that immigrants are currently making to Los Angeles, to California, to the U.S. Mexico relations, including Central America, and to also have that available for us to be able to critique and fight back against these types of applications, which will have no positive benefit, but rather very
Thank
large
you.
negative.
Good evening. My name is Jordan Cunnings. I'm an immigration attorney at Public Counsel. I work exclusively with immigrants who are in detention centers. Our friends in immigrant detention can't be with us tonight, but I'd like to think that they would ask you to respond forcefully and bravely to the xenophobic and racist executive orders that were issued today, and to make clear that our community does not endorse the good immigrant, bad immigrant narrative that's been adopted by this federal administration and unfortunately also by the last one. Limiting access to legal resources based on criminal history accedes to this framework and leaves us weaker, not stronger. I urge the committee today to do all it can to end any collaboration and information sharing between local law enforcement and ICE. Those of us working in the detention centers know that that's happening, despite what the LAPD said tonight, and to oppose any restrictions on access to the LA Justice Fund based on past criminal convictions. I count myself lucky most days not to be judged by the worst decisions I've made in my life, and I would ask you to extend that same grace to the members of our immigrant community as you craft your plans going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shuming Chir, and I work at the National Immigration Law Center, and I'm also a member of Chinatown Community for Equitable Development. On Saturday, many of us were marching out in the streets to really show our opposition to Trump's politics of hate. And so I applaud your efforts to also push back and show that LA is a city that stands for solidarity and also for equal treatment of all immigrants, regardless of where we came from. I urge, as many other people have done, I urge you to further support this program to provide representation for immigrants in detention who so desperately need legal counsel in order to provide the supporting documents and to argue their cases. It makes a fundamental difference to them and their family members and their communities when they have counsel on their side. I also urge you to stand strong against the federal government's threats to defund LA, because we know that what LA is doing is fully legal and fully constitutional, and we will also stand with you in fighting back against the federal government. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emmy McLean. I'm a lawyer with the National Day Laborer Organizing Network, and I also am here representing a broad coalition of labor, faith, civil rights, and immigrant rights organizations that have made concrete recommendations to this city and this committee for how to protect the city's diverse population. And we ask for a meeting with each of you to discuss these proposed policies. This could not be more urgent. Today, Donald Trump signed a few pieces of paper. If this were January 19th, the pieces of paper would have no effect. Now they stand to triple the immigration force and target virtually all undocumented community members for detention and deportation. We all have to resist in our own ways, but one thing is clear: we have to resist. Not all of us have the powers to sign papers that become law, but you do, and now you must. We need more than words, we need actions, and we look forward to your speedy endorsement of SB 54. I'm glad to hear the words from Councilmember Cedillo today. We also urge you to act locally, to pass substantive sanctuary policies, to protect immigrants and Muslims who now have a target on their back, and respectfully special.
Yes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leonardo Faria Chusan. I'm here with the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles, PAC. As the South LA representative, I'd like to first and foremost thank Councilman Price and the Mayor Garcetti's office for partnering with us. And in South LA, where on December 19th at Los Angeles Trade Tech, we held a successful town hall and workshop known as Know Your Rights. We had over 100 local residents participate. As an academic with a background in immigration, education, and race relations, I cannot express how invaluable it is for groups and communities to work on intra-relations before they work on inter-relations, because when we get our messages correctly amongst ourselves, we can present it to individuals like yourselves. With that being said, as we move forward, I look forward to many more opportunities as our organization works with Mayor Garcetti's office and this committee for the overall pursuit of our community's protection and resources. More importantly, there is no such thing as an illegal human, only inhumane legislators.
Asmin Castillo, Yamalex Rustrian, Lindsay Tozalowski, Edna Monroy, and Manuel Villanueva. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Tozlowski. I'm the Executive Director of the Immigrant Defenders Law Center. We're a social justice nonprofit law firm and one of the largest providers of deportation defense in the city of Los Angeles. I didn't come alone. I brought my 7-year-old daughter Maya with me today. She's a second grader at an LAUSD public school right up the street. I brought her because the day after the election, she came to me when I picked her up from school, and she asked me what was going to happen because the kids had told her that Trump was going to send all of the Latino kids back to Mexico. She wanted to know what would happen to her abuelita. She wanted to know what would happen to her dad. I brought her here tonight because I've told her many times that mommy and lots of her friends and tons of people all over this city every day are fighting to stop Trump from splitting up our families. But I've also brought her here so she can see that the city of Los Angeles is fighting back too. So I'm asking the City Council tonight to not only move forward with endorsing SB 54, but also to stand strong as a sanctuary city in the face of Trump's policies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Edna Monroy with CJA, California Immigrant Youth Justice Alliance, and also the ICE out of LA Coalition. I'm also undocumented, and I grew up in South Central LA. I've been living there since 2001 when I migrated when I was 12. And I'm here to remind you of what a sanctuary city should look like. You should ask those directly impacted, undocumented, people with prior convictions, Muslim, the Black community, women, trans and queer people. A sanctuary city should not have any ICE or police collaboration. There should be a clear way for the community to hold accountable any police brutality. There should not be a Muslim registry. And there should also be resources for mental health, specifically tailored to mental health resources, people that have prior convictions to be able to contribute back to society and to be able to rehabilitate. So when is the time for LA to really stand up and take the lead? Now is the time, and so we don't want any more symbolic.
Thank you. Gilbert Salcedo, National Lawyers Guild. Megan Ortiz. Pascual Lombardi, National Lawyers Guild, Amalia Gray, and Juan Venancio.
Good evening. I'm Gilbert Salcedo, co-president of the National Lawyers Guild and also member of the ICE out of LA Coalition. I want to congratulate you for establishing this committee because now more than ever, we need strong protections for our immigrant communities. With Donald Trump launching attacks on the immigrants since from the get-go, we're looking to our local leaders to step up to the plate and implement very strong policies to protect immigrants. Specifically, we'd like the city of LA to pass a resolution declaring LA sanctuary city with strong protections, not just symbolically. Santa Ana just passed one and has very strong protections. We expect no less of our leaders. We also would like for you to endorse SB 54, the California Values Act, and also update the Special Order 40. We would also like to see that the LA Justice Fund, we congratulate you for participating and taking the initiative in doing that, but we would like for you to go a step further and make it truly universal without prioritizing or excluding groups.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Ortiz. I'm the Executive Director of el Instituto de Educación Popular del Sur de California, or IDEPSCA. We operate 4 out of the 7 Los Angeles day labor centers. The day labor centers in Los Angeles are at the intersection of being targeted by the Trump administration, Our members are immigrants, they are Muslim, they are trans folks, they are queer folks, and they know more than anyone what it's like to be targeted not just by immigration, but also by criminalization policies. I don't want to have to wait for one of the hundreds of day laborers who come to our centers, one of the hundreds of domestic workers who come to our centers. I don't want to wait for them to be in detention or deportation. I actually want to see programs like Special Order 40 looked at, but also in terms of what already exists in terms of the racial profiling that happens against blacks and Latinos, how that coincides with gentrification. Many of our members are homeless.
Thank you.
Pasquale Lombardo, and I'm with the National Lawyers Guild. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration for 36 years. I started representing Salvadorans during the war in 1981 in a small refugee center, people fleeing here who faced deportation when they fled the repression in Central America. And here I am 36 years later, and now we're representing women and children and fleeing Central America and Mexico, fleeing the gangs and fleeing the narcos, and also facing deportation. So things don't change very fast. I'm the son of immigrants, Italian immigrants who fled their poverty in their country, and I'm here to make one real point, which is regarding the Los Angeles Justice Fund. I really encourage universal representation. Everyone should have a lawyer, people in detention, and particularly people with crimes. They should not be demonized. They have a right to be here in their community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Gray. I'm a member of Community Coalition ISAT of LA. Thank you for your attention and action tonight. Last week, I had the opportunity to witness an immigration hearing for a man in detention. After his petition was approved, the judge advised the man that for his own good, he should have no interaction with law enforcement in the future. Respectfully, no interaction with law enforcement is not a healthy relationship with law enforcement. I urge you to endorse SB 54, support universal representation for all people, and ensure that the LA Justice Fund is based on the principles of universality and inclusiveness that makes our city great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hola, muy buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Juan Venancio, director de la Federación Poblana. Bueno, déjeme ser lo más claro que pueda.
Let me tell you this.
Ahora más que nunca es cuando nuestros líderes políticos
Now more than ever, our political leaders,
deben de trabajar en equipo con los
they
líderes
have to
comunitarios.
work as a team with the community leaders.
Y no podemos permitir que nadie ofenda a las mujeres,
We cannot permit that nobody offend women.
que se meta con nuestros estudiantes
To have any problems with our students
o con los nativos americanos.
or with the Native Americans.
Ahora más que nunca vamos a trabajar en equipo con las demás naciones.
Now more than ever, we're going to work together with all the nations.
Y recordarles que el pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
I want to remind everybody that when we get together, no, we are not going to be defeated.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Betty Haspiado, Dream Team LA. Keith James. Martha Ophelia Jimenez. Herman. Andy Baldenegro. Ana Garcia. And Delia Sature.
My name is Betty. I'm an undocumented mother. I have been living in this country for almost 30 years. I fled my country because the corruptions. Since I came to this country, I decided to stay. I never knew that I break any law. I started working, and every time when I was leaving my home, I have like a big punch in my stomach with the feeling that I don't know if I want to go back and come back and see my children. So today I hear Trump this morning that he wants to have secure communities again. And he said all the sanctuary cities who doesn't apply with ICE, he will be punished. I'm so worried, I'm so scared, but after hearing him this morning, I decided I don't want to give up and keep organizing, keep doing the training as Know Your Rights for my community. Even with this, I could be more in risk of deportation.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I ask you, the Los Angeles must to be an example for the whole country, and the leaders with the Los Angeles must to step up in the moment to concrete actions. Please don't let keep profiting with us.
Thank you. Can you repeat your name one more time? Is it Betty Jaspiado? Okay, thank you. Next speaker. Your name, please, sir.
Okay, my name is Keith James, and I'm here as a signatory to RefuseFascism.org's call to action that's been signed by thousands of people, including many prominent and notable people in this society. In the name of 7 billion people on this planet, in the name of humanity, this fascist, illegitimate, Trump-Pence regime must be driven from power. Now. This is fascism. It should be called out for what it is, by any definition. The xenophobia, the white supremacy, the anti-immigrant, the anti-women, misogyny, the militarism. This is fascism, and if it gets consolidated, it will be hell on earth for the masses of people. Look, millions and
Thank you.
tens of millions need to hit the streets right now. This is our window.
Thank you. Keith, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Noted. Thank you. Ana Garcia, thank you for joining us tonight.
My name is Ana Garcia, and I would first like to thank you for putting together this committee and taking such an important step to protect our most vulnerable community. As a DACA recipient, yes, I am concerned about the future of DACA. However, I am even more concerned about the bigger threat that the rest of our community faces. This morning, we witnessed Donald Trump's campaign promises put into action, and I ask you to be bold and face these threats with equal force. We urge you to make sure that the LA Justice Fund protects the due process rights of all detained immigrants, to make clear that the city of Los Angeles will not participate in a Muslim registry, and we urge you to protect desperate immigrants who attempt to fix their status but are taken advantage of by unscrupulous notarios and immigration consultants. I look forward to working with each of your offices to resist, to boldly wage war against Trump's policies, and to protect our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Andy Baldenegro, and I am the organizer at the Caresen Day Labor Center. Day Labor Centers of Los Angeles are at the forefront of the immigrant community that need to be protected and fully funded so that we continue to provide essential support and services that otherwise day laborers would not have access to. With that being said, I would also like to urge the committee to uphold critical due process protections by supporting the LA Justice Fund and guarantee that all immigrants in deportation proceedings have legal counsel. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dalia Satare. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, where we provide free legal services to underserved communities. Los Angeles is a top destination in the United States and globally for human trafficking, which is a form of modern-day slavery. Foreign nationals who are forced into labor and sex work through force, fraud, and coercion. Unfortunately, the executive order inhibits victims from coming forward, and it thwarts the TVPA, which purpose is to protect victims and prosecute criminals. In addition, LAFLA also provides free legal services to refugees and asylum seekers. LA is the home of refugees and torture survivors from Africa, Asia, Middle East, Latin America, and all over the world. We represent LGBT survivors, DV survivors, children who have gone through unimaginable persecution physical and mental pain. The executive order re-traumatizes these survivors and endangers the United States obligation under the refugee laws and the U.S. policy of family reunification.
Thank you.
Same name with the Dahlia, if I may address. Do I have a permission?
Yes, you have to fill out your card next time, your own card, not multiple lists on the card. Please go forward, and then fill out the card
I
after.
apologize. My name is Amila Urucevic, and I am here on behalf of Interfaith Refugee and Immigration Services, which is refugee resettlement agency, non-sectarian, and under project under Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles. And I would just like to thank you for all your work and actions, and to give you to witness to you what I witnessed today on one of the meetings of Refugee Forum of Los Angeles, which is the unincorporated association of nonprofit and educational organizations who provide services to refugees, asylees, and low-income immigrants. And as well as my office, because these executive orders are starting to affect immediately most vulnerable groups of all. There was a family who came to our office, devastated family of new refugees who were promised refuge in the United States and safe haven. They learned that their family is even more divided today because their visa to be processed is canceled by as an effect of these executive orders.
Thank you. Thank you. Flor Rodriguez, Jan Tulloch, Jason Escobar, Catherine Garcia, Beth Baker, Yenny Usila.
Mr. Chair, as you're well aware, you bring treason to the United States, bringing such judgment against our 45th president that all the voters voted upon. You bring hatred upon the hatred of the news articles posted everywhere. Everyone has a right, true, to due process. But under 42 U.S.C. and exercising my First Amendment right of 42 U.S.C. 1983, fuck you. In addition to that, our rights as Americans and defending the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and the State of California Bill of Rights, I say to you, fuck you. So now remember, we all have a right to say what we like. We have an opinion, and this is my opinion, as Madonna brought out in her speech. Not that I hate anyone here, but I do know the law the way you exercise it. Fuck you.
Flor Rodriguez, Jean Tulloch, Jason Esquivel, Catherine Garcia, please come forward. Beth Baker, Yenny.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Beth Baker. I'm a professor at California State University, Los Angeles. My colleagues and I have been doing research for 3 years on the impacts of deportation on local communities and economies. We have found that the impacts are devastating not only for local families, but for local economies. But what I really want to speak to tonight is the impact of law enforcement. I want to make sure everyone here understands that the majority of immigrants who are deported nationally have no criminal record other than immigration violations, that the majority of those who do have a criminal record are convicted of nonviolent crimes, and that the majority of deportees who are sucked into the mass deportation machine are sucked in through local law enforcement. And I want to point out that it's insufficient to be talking about the LAPD and Special Order 40. We have to talk about the sheriffs. The sheriffs are running other jails and prisons. That means that ICE has access to all the jails and prisons. Los Angeles cannot call itself a sanctuary city unless we control the sheriff.
Thank you.
My name is Jen Tulloch. I'm an artist and filmmaker and also a member of the Community Coalition.
California has long been a vanguard for so many important movements, including this year's monumental and historic movement to raise the minimum wage. As such, the country is looking to us in this important moment. Now, I am only a citizen by the happenstance of having been born to people that were citizens, that happen to have been born to people that were citizens, that were born to people that were brought here on a boat. As such, I am here to offer a spirit of allyship to our immigrant brothers and sisters who are being treated unethically by the current administration. And as such, I would like to urge this committee to uphold critical due process protections by supporting the LA Justice Fund and guaranteeing that all immigrants in deportation proceedings have legal counsel. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Flor Rodriguez, Jen Tulloch, Jason Escobar, Catherine Garcia, Mauro Fernandez, Evelyn Cedeño Nac, Rogelio Valdez, Rosa Tovar, Lorda Alvarado, Talia Interves, Williams Roja, Melody Klingfuss, Martha Izquierdo. Yes, young man.
Hello, my name is William Rojas, and I'm a high school student. I'm the president of the Metro Club at my school. And I would like to say that it's good to have politicians making new laws and creating and promoting the rights of people, but no creo que eso le esté ayudando mucho a la gente, ya que mucha gente, le están diciendo que tiene derechos,
I
pero
don't
¿cuáles
think
son?
this is helping people because they're
¿Cuáles
telling
son los
people that
derechos
they
de la
have
gente?
derechos.
Mucha gente
A lot of
sabe que
people,
tiene derechos, pero en la
they know
hora
they have
en que va
rights,
la migra a sus
but
casas,
when the immigration
no saben
goes to
cómo
their
hacer
home,
valer sus derechos
they don't know how
y
to
terminan
defend
siendo
their rights,
deportados.
and
En
they
nuestra
end up
escuela
being
actualmente
deported.
we're
Right now in
having
school,
community forums and we're providing legal information to all the undocumented people so they can protect themselves and their family, and I think we should make this in our city to protect our people in our community. Thank you.
Ron Goches, Pablo Alvarado, Marcos Aguilar.
Hi, good evening or good night. Carlos Amador with the California Immigrant Policy Center. I also want to express the demand that many of us or folks have been bringing in regards to having LA City not be compliant with the Trump deportation machine, as well as asking for the LA Justice Fund to be implemented, especially supporting the defending people that are in deportation procedures. I think one other thing, and I know we have reached out to each of your offices with recommendations in regards to policy, policy recommendations. So I wanted to ask each of you if we're able to meet with you in the next couple of weeks to talk about those recommendations. Can we meet with each of you directly in the next couple of weeks to talk about those recommendations? Yes, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Melody Klingenfuss, and I stand here before you representing all undocumented students and DACA recipients across the nation. As a DACA recipient myself, I grew up as an orphan in Guatemala, and I was brought here at the age of 9 years old. I assimilated to the culture, and I have fought for my right to higher education. I am also standing here before you on behalf of the University of Southern California, where I now go and study as a grad student in SALEF and the California Dream Network. I want to share my story with you, and I am humbled to be before you, and I want to ask you to please remember my story as I talk on behalf of thousands of dreamers across the nation. I have fought for my rights, and I ask that you please protect DACA as much as you can. DACA has allowed me to exist in this country, and I still pray and long for the day where I am judged by the content of my character and not the possession of a legal piece of paper. On behalf of all the Dreamers and undocumented students, thank you, stand tall, and be proud.
Thank you. Mr. Goches.
Good evening. My name is Talia Inlander. I'm a senior staff attorney at Public Counsel, and I run our immigration detention work. And I'm here to add the voices of the detainees just down the road from us who aren't able to be here tonight. Today's executive orders have confirmed that our immigrant community is under attack, and to be clear, that means all of us are under attack. We need your leadership now. We need you to take action and fight back. There are several ways that you can do that. Make good on the promise that you made tonight to support SB 54, the California Values Act. Update Special Order 40 to bring it into our current times, and ensure that all immigrants in deportation proceedings, particularly those who are in our immigration detention centers, have access to legal representation. Everyone deserves a fair hearing, and you have the power to bring that to them. I hope you'll make good on those promises.
Good evening. Thank you all for organizing this. My name is Ron Goches. I'm a teacher in LAUSD. I'm also a member of different neighborhood councils, and I'm from South Central Los Angeles. I'm here very concretely to offer some proposals. Number one, for the council members to open up your offices, any spaces, libraries in your districts, for Know Your Rights forums. A lot of us organizations, we don't have facilities, but we can do the work. My organization, Unel Barrio, we've done at least 5 Know Your Rights workshops in the last month, but we've been doing them in wherever we can, so please open up those spaces. For the LAPD, along with the city council, if you really want to defend immigrants and want to set the example, like Cynthia said a while ago, stop attacking street vendors. That's something very concrete that you can do at this moment, and that's something that will be a huge help, and it will show the rest of the country how you really defend migrants in our city. Also, in terms of legalization, it's something that we should push for full legalization, not just for some, not just for others, not just for the good immigrants, but we need a full legalization. So that's something that we hope that you can also support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Buenas noches, honorable council members. I just have 5 specific requests. Number 1, modernize Special Order 40 for all the reasons that have been stated before. Endorse the California Values Act. Provide funding for the day labor worker centers. Don't take it away. And please tell Mayor Garcetti not to be afraid to use the word sanctuary. It's not a bad word. It's a beautiful word. Follow the definition that the faith-based community has put out there. Please, don't let the xenophobes, the nativists, the bigots define what sanctuary is. Let our city define it. And then the final thing, I think it's important that we see the undocumented community not as victims, but as subjects of change. People who have courage. The people that I work with every day, the day laborers, get up every single morning, they stand on a sidewalk to offer the only thing that they have, their labor. And they defy everything. They defy police officers, they defy Minutemen, they defy unscrupulous employers, and they stand there and offer their work with dignity. That's the example, that's the courage that we all need to follow.
Gracias. Marcos.
And I'm here on behalf of Semillas del Pueblo organization, of which I'm the executive director, along with my wife and co-director, Minnie Ferguson. I'm her husband, sorry, I forgot about that. Latino Coalition of Latino PAC and our California Rising Collaborative are here in support of the 6 agenda items, but also request that this committee and City Council as a whole stand its ground when the federal funds are cut and the federal troops march into our homes, our schools, our city, and our state. Fascism is not a romantic notion of how the world ought to be. It's a violent plan for how to make it fall to its knees. It's then that this city will need your leadership and a united community of millions at your side. I thank Councilman Huizar for partnering with us at Salesian High School for our town hall that turned out over 300 local residents, as well as Council President Wesson for organizing this ad hoc committee. We call upon this council to recognize also that these lands are the lands of indigenous peoples, and the nations of the Tongva people, the Chumash people, and the Cahuilla peoples are the original peoples of the city we call Los Angeles.
Thank you. William Morrison. Marta Izquierdo. Maria Flores.
Okay, I guess you're not starting me yet.
Andy Griggs, and Martha Ophelia Jimenez. William Morrison.
Thank you. Ashley, I'm going to be straight and direct. I always am, and I'm going to say one thing. What is going on right now is, Ashley, you're just trying to put the community in panic, and I'm going to state who I am. I am your state Senate director from the California Republican Assembly. I hold the third highest seat, and all you're doing is because you want to get reelected, you're just putting them in a panic mode. Law enforcement, we have our laws that protect them. The only ones we are going to deport are the ones that create bodily harm and harm other individuals. So you need to state that one point, because you want to get reelected. You're doing it the wrong way, and this is very upsetting to me. You have individuals here, like Mike Hernandez said, educate. This council members are not educating anybody, but I want to honor 3 individuals, which is law enforcement, Mr. Price, for always doing the right thing, and other individuals.
Martha Izquierdo, Maria Flores, Andy Griggs. Andy? And Martha Ophelia Jimenez.
Well, my name is Andy Griggs, born at Temple Hospital, a resident of Echo Park, just recently elected to the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and I thought for a second I was going to be talking to the school board, but since I'm not, I think it's very important to note that this is also an issue of intersectionality. And I think as you move forward on this, you need to be thinking about the issues that immigrants also face in housing, in homelessness, in all of the issues in jobs, all of those issues as well. And if we think about it in terms of those intersectionality issues, we can come up with some creative answers to some of the problems. I think it's very important that we think about that as we move forward. I also work with a nonprofit. I'm not an executive director, but I work with, so I'll tell you about that next time.
Thank you, Andy, very much. Wayne, what's on the before us?
Sir, we should read the record, agenda into the record, and confirm your vote.
Please.
Item number 1, motions to deal Price instructing the city administrative officer with the assistance of the city attorney to report relative to contributions from the city of Los Angeles in the amount of $2 million to the California Community Foundation for the proposed Los Angeles Justice Fund to provide qualified legal representation to immigrants facing deportation or removal proceedings who are otherwise unable to afford or access legal services. This item is also referred to Budget and Finance Committee. Item number 2, Resolution Weezer-Wesson, relative to including in the city's 2017-2018 federal legislative program support for President Obama's executive actions in support of immigrants and opposition to any administrative and legislative action that would reverse immigration relief created under President Obama's administration or counter his executive actions. It's also referred to Rules Committee. Item number 3, motions to deal Weezer-Wesson, requesting the city attorney to report relative to the legal efforts the city can take to protect immigrant communities from any new or renewed federal efforts that would expand deportations or result in discriminatory practices against immigrants, regardless of their legal status, and directing the CAO and the chief legislative analyst with the assistance of the Economic Workforce Development Department to report relative to the potential economic impacts of deportations on the city's economy and local programs and recommendations for protecting city programs from the negative impacts of federal actions that target immigrants. Item number 4, motion Weezer-Wesson, relative to the city of Los Angeles reaffirming its support for the Los Angeles Police Department policies related to dealing with undocumented immigrants, including Special Order 40, which ensures that all members of the community, regardless of immigration status, can interact with the police department without fear of being asked about their immigration status or being deported. Item number 5, motion O'Farrell, Weezer, Price, Rue, Wesson, instructing the CLA to report with recommendations and strategies to provide free legal assistance to qualified constituents on immigration matters, including securing coordinating the services of outside legal counsel on a pro bono basis, an outreach and advocacy strategy to reach communities of need, and the feasibility of using city-owned facilities to provide this assistance and outreach, and requesting the Los Angeles Unified School District to make a presentation on current practices with regard to immigration assistance and recommendations for collaboration with the city on immigrant affairs. This item is also referred to Rules Committee. Item number 6, motion Martinez Cedillo, stipulating that all immigration consultants operating within the City of Los Angeles comply with all provisions of the California Immigration Consultant Act, as well as all local provisions that may be developed in order to maintain a valid business license within the city, requesting the CLA, the Office of Finance, and the City Attorney to report on the feasibility of developing a mandatory permit for immigration consultants. Item number 7 has been dealt with, sir.
We took our action, or we took our action earlier?
Let's, should we reconfirm your action, sir? You
Motion to move all 1 through 4 on consent. Second. Quorum still present. All concur? So will be the order.
And on items 5 and 6, sir?
Yeah, just to clarify for the record, that vote was for items 1 through 4.
Yes. Items 5 and 6 are simply reports, right?
There are reports. I believe you're requesting, you want us to continue those items in committee and ask for CLA to
Yes.
report back?
Yes, we do.
That will be the order, sir.
Okay, and item 7 has been commenced with.
We've already dealt with item 7, so you can note and file. Thank everyone for coming.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us today. It's 9:15. Thank you for still being here. This has been a very important and significant evening, following a very important morning for our nation and for our city. I see Mike Fong here. I thank you for his presence. Herman, I want you to stop that. So I want to thank everybody who's here tonight and appreciate you. We've got a lot of work to do. I thank the city attorney. I know that we will come back and continue our work shortly. And council members, any other comments? Closing comments? Mr. Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say again, thank you for your leadership. But I just want to thank folks who came out tonight, the panels, and the individuals who stayed to express their concerns. And I think it was clear, we heard the message loud and clear, that there's a broad general consensus that we want to protect the rights of everyone, especially of our immigrant citizens. Because when we protect their rights, we protect our rights, and that certainly is clear. Also, it's clear that we need to provide more education and information. And so I'm proud we've been able to work with a number of organizations in sponsoring workshops. We're going to continue doing that, and I think we can't do enough of it. And so I'm just happy to be supporting that process, and we'll be working closely with my colleagues and all stakeholders to do that. And then finally, broad support for the California Values Act, SB 54, by Pro Tem De Leon, and also SB 31, and the need to update the Special Order 40. We heard a number of comments along those lines, and I think the testimony we heard tonight was eloquent, was passionate, was accurate, and Mr. Chairman, I'm just pleased to be a part of this process. Thank you for your leadership and that of my colleagues as we try to work through these issues and making sure that all of our citizens are safe and secure, and that they have an opportunity to contribute and really benefit from this exciting diaspora that we have here in Los Angeles. And I'm just happy that we were here to make some history as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rue?
So again, I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to thank all the people who are still here to the very end. It was a long night, lots of testimony, and all our expert witnesses. this is just the beginning, and we have a longer road ahead of us and a longer fight. And I really appreciate everyone who stuck around to the end. And I thank you for participating today.
Well, you know me, Mr. Chair. Let's get to work.
Let's
We
get
have
to
a lot of
work.
work to do. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I think we received a lot of really good input, but unless we get to work, that will not get accomplished. So I'm very impatient in that way, so I appreciate you moving this along. So good job, Mr. Chair. Let's give him a big round of applause. Good job, Gil.
I share your sense of urgency.
I always have a sense of urgency.
I appreciate that sense of urgency. Thank you, each and every one of you, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.